Hey everybody, welcome to the Kent with Bent Christmas special / doggy fundraiser. I am, of course, the Dapper Dinosaur, who's not in the name of the show, but that's the Bent who is in the name of the show, and there over to the left is the Kent who's in the name of the show. I do want to apologize. My OBS apparently just decided to stop working for a little bit, went down to 0 kbps, and decided to not load any videos, so that is why there was a little hiccup there right at the beginning. But hey, there was a little hiccup there right at the beginning. But hey, Bent, first, Merry Christmas, because it is in fact Christmas here, because the sun has set, which means it is the next liturgical day, and the 25th, as a liturgical day, is the first day of Christmas, also called
Merry
Christmas Day.
to you too.
Thank you. So, and how long is Christmas going to last?
12 days.
Okay. But then there's going to be another Christmas.
Right.
Okay.
For another 12 days after that.
Exactly. That's right. If you want to, you can get 24 days of Christmas a year, which I don't know why you wouldn't, so do that. Anyway, so a couple things before we really get into it. One is that this is indeed a doggy fundraiser. A little dog named Carmen, who is the source of the little dog emoji that you might see if you remember. She had to go to the emergency veterinary clinic a few days ago. What was it? Wednesday, Thursday, something like that?
I think on Saturday we took her in.
Okay. Oh, right, because I had a show. It was the same day as the show. Okay. Yeah, and she had some problems with one of her anal glands, which, you know, and also one of the big things is that there was some unusual tissue in there that was firm, and so there were some fine needle aspirates done, and we're waiting to hear back about the cytology results on that, because it might be cancer, and if it is, that is probably going to be it for Carmen. But regardless, there was still a pretty hefty vet bill. So what that means is half of the money that I make from this stream on today is going to go to the fundraiser. The fundraiser is linked in the pinned chat, so if you want to go over there and check that out, that is also a great way to give to Bent. It looks like we currently have $230 raised. So that's awesome. That's 15% of the way to the goal. And it just launched today. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's already donated. Danny, Nick, Madeline, Becca, and Anonymous. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you all.
Yep. And because it is a holiday and we are feeling, nice and generous, if we can get the super chat goal, which is 20 of the teal or higher super chats over the course of the next almost 2 hours, it's an hour and 55 minutes, we will do a third hour of Kent with Bent. And there's our first super chat that counts. For $5, Goop23 says AIG is a stocking of coal or is on the naughty list or something to that effect, and we'll take a drink for that. All right, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Ben Thick Tunicate for sending a 50-pound super chat with no message. That is awesome. You guys are always amaze me with how much you are willing to step up when it's actually needed. And this is one of those times. And Josh McGee has just gifted 50 Dapper Dinosaur memberships.
Wow.
Okay, well,
that's amazing.
We're gonna bump this to 51. And I'm gonna start trying to drink this Santa Berry Blast that I just made with a bunch of tequila all at once. I'm gonna try to yep. Basically, I'm just gonna keep drinking it as Bent here goes over the drinking rules. So Bent, why don't you?
I got a blast to drink.
Okay, so let's see. So one of the drinking rules is that we will drink for gifted memberships, but if it goes above 30 or so, we just kind of finish the drink rather than counting out. But I didn't expect that to happen. Well, I still had a full drink, which is full of tequila, because this is a Santa Berry Blast, which is normally a virgin cocktail. But I put in tequila so as to have this cocktail have had sex. Because that is what sex is for a beverage, is you put alcohol in it, and that's when a beverage has sex. The analogy never really made a whole lot of sense to me. But you know what? That's okay. It doesn't have to. Jillian, some guy on a boat at Allren, who's been a member for 21 months, says, joyous festive season to Ben Stapper and everyone except that one weird YouTube intern who hates me. With a Mothra, a drink, and a wing. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Also, Roshina Polydactyl Jesus Scalar. Thank you. Says chug, chug, chug. We will be getting on that. Let me just update. So I told Bent I had my tequila already staged in pre-measured portions. I might not have enough pre-staged tequila. I might have to pour more.
Oops. I'm just trying not to get a brain freeze.
Yeah, me too. Icarus says, so sex on the beach is just booze? I mean, you would think so. Actually, that's one of the ones that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because, like, it's peach flavored, and, like, I don't know, I don't go to the beach and I think, like, one, I don't normally think sex because of sand, because however memeable and cringy the line might have been, Anakin was right about sand. It's coarse and irritating, and it gets everywhere. So, like, on its own, the idea of sex on the beach is automatically just kind of like, who wants that? Why would you do that? It's like the worst place imaginable. No, it's not the worst place imaginable. I mean, you could be trying to do it, like, in the pit of an active volcanic caldera or something. But, like...
Don't do that.
On the places where, like, you probably won't die, it's pretty high on the list of, like, least enticing places. And then also, whenever I'm at the beach, I never think, oh yeah, peach. I'm thinking, like, coconut, pineapple, lemon, lime, orange, you know, not peach. I think of peach when I'm in a swamp because of Georgia. Although don't tell my brother that I like Georgia peaches, because he will get insulted and insist that South Carolinian peaches are better, because he lives outside Charleston.
Sounds lovely.
It is sometimes. Other times, it's a swamp, so it's, you know, like 98% humidity for weeks on end. And he finds crushed frogs inside of his door frame because they just hop in there.
Oh, nice.
Roshina Polydactyl Jesus Killer says, peach means butt. It certainly does in terms of the emoji scene. So, as I'm still drinking this, already getting a little bit buzzed. This is not a great sign. Dutch Tunicate Demonic Selection, who's been a member for 7 months, says, animals are the best wishes to Carmen. Yes, look, guys, I'm planning to keep you guys updated, and as soon as we hear back on the tests, I will help let you guys know. Unfortunately, if it is cancer, the only common kind of cancer that starts in the anal glands is an extremely aggressive kind of cancer that even with chemo, all that would really do is probably give her like an extra 6 miserable months. So, unfortunately, what it means if she ends up testing positive for cancer is it probably will just be, we see how long it takes until she's not doing well, and then we schedule a euthanasia. So, but hey, hopefully that won't be the thing that's happening.
Yeah, fingers crossed for a positive, or let me say that again, a negative result.
Who are you, Michael Scott? You mixing up positive and negative in the medical community? I'm gonna get one of these raspberries out. All right, so we got drinking rules for this. One of them is that we'll drink for memberships, which you already saw a lot of. Jeez. Another one is that we will drink if Kent says something so stupid we just kind of have to, and that's one of our more common ones. But also, if he just says something wrong, that doesn't count. It has to actually be like really stupid. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind says something that's actually factually accurate, and he's not just citing a source and just reading it out verbatim. It actually has to be something that is in his brain, and he says it. Let's take a drink. If anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, or if anyone super chat or membership chats anything with any of the kaiju emojis, also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that German Workers' Party that was super popular in like the 1930s in Germany. We'll also take a drink if Kanthoven tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. If he confuses what we can know about any wider taxon to which Lucy, the Australopithecus afarensis, belonged, with what we can know about her just directly from her skeleton, we call that non-hominid. That can happen once per stream. Let's see. Let's take a drink if Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent's going to say next. And if Kent cites a source and we check the source, and rather than just not supporting him, if it actively contradicts him, we will take a drink for that. And what am I missing, Ben? Oh, if Mothra or Godzilla come by audibly, we'll take a drink for that. Now what am I missing?
Did you get Dapper as a professional?
Yes, if I screw up the production. That is a drink, but not if it's technical difficulties. So, for instance, if OBS decides to crap itself again, that doesn't count. So, yeah. All right, I think that's it. We have 52 drinks on the clock here. Kellera Tellian, there we go, for $5 says, Merry Christmas, and here's to a third hour with a Godzilla that I am trying to drink for. It's already a lot. Guys, when I finish this, I'm gonna have to ask Ben some kind of weird like Star Trek thing so that he can talk for a while about it, and then go make myself another one. That's what's gonna happen. So Ben, here's what I want you to already start thinking about.
Okay.
Start thinking about if a alternate universe Bashir, who was turned into an EMH, met another alternate universe Garrick, who had joined Starfleet as a medical officer, met on a Defiant class multi-universe ship working for Section 31, how long would they be engaged before they officially got married?
I'll start thinking about that.
Right. Judge Thick Tunic Demonic Selection for $2 says, here's to a drunk Dapper for $2 with the Godzilla. You guys are going to kill me. Mine Finished Journey for $6.66 says, Hail Nero, Hail Daps, and Ben, and Hail Carmen. All scritches to the doggo, and forgetting a drink trigger should be a dap. Let me update this. Alright. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go walk over to the kitchen and start filling up my next drink, while Ben talks about the timing and details of multiversal Garrick Bashir hologram, specifically hologram Bashir, EFH marriages, because as we all know, that's canon. So, also Joshua Geese for $5 says, sorry/not sorry, Dapper. Don't be sorry, I do this to myself. This was always a possibility, and I knew that going in. Alright, so, Bent. There you go. In case you need background events, do remember that the Garrick Bashir ship has been a part of the Deep Space Nine fandom for decades now, and it also, the actors who played those two characters have read multiple erotic fan fictions about those two characters. So this is not exactly something that comes out of the blue. So I will be back in a second.
I didn't know about it.
Well, now you do, so now you get to talk about it.
Well, I think it all depends on the mission that they're on. If they're working for Section 31, it's clearly top secret, so no one can know about it. They might not even know themselves. So they might be putting off a marriage till after their mission's over. Maybe the mission is so hectic that they can't get married during the mission. Maybe they can get married during the mission. I'd say at least a few months, if not 2 years. That's my best guess. If it's longer than that, maybe they're starting to run into problems, but that's none of my business, you know. It's their personal relationship. I wish them the best. And, yeah, hope things turn out well. That's all I got. I wonder if Worf will be at the wedding. I feel like he's in Star Trek a lot. Deep Space Nine. He'd probably be invited. Unless it's a private wedding on the ship. In which case, Worf might not even know about it. All right, let's read the chat. See if there's anything here. Super chat from Silu for 50 secs. We'll reach out 404 on the drink counter today with a Godzilla. Will we reach 404 on the drink counter today? I hope so. Dapper hopes not, but I hope we do. That's a lot of drinks. 404. Error. Okay, let's see if there's anything else here. Vishanti says, yeah, Bent is just now learning of the Garrick-Bashir relationship. That's true. I did not know about that. It's canon according to Dapper, but I'm not sure in what form of Star Trek.
Okay, I am back, and the answer to that is it was in the penultimate episode of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh.
So,
which I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, well, you got to get on that. So, also, we read the 50-sec super chat. I heard Ben's do it, but we will add one to the drink counter for the Godzilla. Thank you very much. I will also update the, Oh, that's a Dapper as a professional right there. That is a decimal point error if I ever saw one. We did not get to 324%. We're at 6... Nope, that's 2 drinks for Dapper as a professional. I really suck at this. Okay, there you go. That's right. There's 2 drinks. Also, AIG is a bag of doinks and AIG are a bag of doinks. Wait, is a bag of doinks and AIG are... Sure. I'm not going to look too hard into it because I can't. So, thank you very much. We will... Kent was last telling us about frozen animals in Siberia, and he mentioned a 15-foot tall camel. I looked into that. There have been frozen camels found in Siberia. I have never seen anything that would indicate a 15-foot tall camel. So I have no idea what he's talking about there. Here we go.
Something was different. Now, why? What happened? We're going to try to explain that here. What froze the mammoth? So here's the things we need to consider.
I think it was the cold that froze the mammoth. What do you think, Bent?
It probably became freezing at some point, and then stayed freezing, and then the mammoths froze because that's how temperature works.
Myral Randar for $10 says, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a woof woof. Thank you very much. Yes, I would say yes to all a Merry Christmas. Even if you don't celebrate, I still hope that you have a wonderful evening and the rest of the 25th, right? So, because, you know what? I don't care if you're celebrating a holiday. I want you to have a good day. I mean, unless you're a certain small subset of people. In which case, I hope you have a terrible day. And I hope that your eggnog turns sour. And that your candy canes are Pepto-Bismol flavored.
And broken.
Broken, yeah. But that's a very small subset of people. Most people, I just hope they have a great day today and tomorrow. So, Vadim Rychenko says, permafrost animals died in bogs, preserved by natural antibiotics, and only much later froze up. Vadim, you should make a video about permafrost animals. Because I think you might actually know more about it than I do. So, yeah. And then Jillian, sorry, some guy on a boat at Alren says, are you in Discord? I am in Discord if you're directing that at me. But I can't tell, because you guys already just had me drink like 2.5 shots of tequila.
They're frozen, some of them standing up.
Okay. Some of them are in upright position. I don't know that we could actually justify that they're standing. Because that's, like, frozen with the top part of your body up and the bottom part of your body down is not the same thing as standing. But okay.
All of them. A few are frozen standing. All you need is one, really, to bring up the question of how did this happen.
Yeah, but you haven't really shown us that that's the case, Kent.
There's undigested food in their mouth and stomach. Now, some people teach that there's undigested buttercups. There have been reports about that, and the skeptics will jump all over that and say, oh, no, they didn't find buttercups. My understanding is they found buttercup seeds. And there have been all kinds of arguments of when these mammoths died because they analyze what's found in their...
Okay, so Vishanti wants to point out it's also Nitelnacht, so no Torah study until halachic midnight. So everybody put down your damn Torah scrolls. I see you over there with your yod trying to read the Torah. Stop it. Don't do it. Wait till tomorrow. Or just halachic midnight. Stop it. And Oid at Fraudulent Grifters Gladstone for $4.99 says AIG is a plunder of peculiar pickled peppered pokes. Thank you very much. I'll take a drink for that. Vadimirchenko says I can find you references. Send them along. I don't know if I'll get to them tonight. In fact, I'm pretty sure I won't. But that doesn't mean I won't take a look at them. We're already getting close to you getting another free pizza, Bent.
Oh, nice.
Although since Vishanti's here and it's Christmas, we might turn it into free Chinese food. Because,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We'll consult.
stomach. And what time of year does that grow? If they find buttercup seeds, well, when do buttercups produce seeds? It's only a certain time of the year. Buttercup's a little flower. So by checking what's in their stomach, and
Rahel Gatubello says for $2, send something that is in like Devanagari, and I can't read that, so I'm just going to take a drink. Oh, and drink from Mothra too. Late Night Kaiju for $4.99 says, name me a good Christmas song to add to my playlist. Good King Wenceslaw, Carol of the Bells, let's see, Jingle Bell Rock. Don't add All I Need for Christmas Is You, because holy crap, all you have to do is go to any store in the world for the next, like, just don't do that. What do you think, Bent?
Theme song to Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
There you go. Yeah. Let's see. What are some other ones? I don't know. There you go. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. If you want to go like super like out there, figure out like whatever the hymns are that like the Coptic Orthodox Church sings in Coptic on Christmas, and shove those in there, because those will be unexpected. I don't even know what those are. I just know that there must be, because I know they celebrate Christmas, and like they're Eastern Christians, so they sing basically everything, because that's how Eastern Christians do. So like there's got to be hymns. Because oh, to be fair, it's sing or chant. Basically, if you go to an Eastern Christian mass or divine liturgy or whatever, they're going to chant or sing essentially the entire thing. There will be almost no plain spoken English except maybe, or plain spoken language except maybe for a homily, if they have a homily. Because if they're going to cut anything out of their mass, the first thing that gets cut is going to be the homily or sermon, which is weird if you're used to Protestant Christianity. Because for Protestants, like the sermon is like the center, and for even Catholics and most Eastern Christians, it's the first thing that you can just cut right out. Who cares? Just drop it.
some of it in their teeth still have grass. They didn't even finish swallowing their last bite.
Okay, cool. But okay, Bent. So if these are preserved in bogs and then frozen, you might not know this. Do you know what makes a bog a bog?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
So a bog is a special kind of swamp, right? It's basically the kind of swamp where the deposition of organic material happens faster than the decay of organic material. Okay? Which means,
Okay.
if anything falls into a bog, on average, it's going to be preserved. Because that is what a
Okay.
bog is. So is it really any big surprise that mammoths who are preserved in a bog might be found with other organic material that was associated with what they were eating? No, not really. Because anything that falls in there is going to be more preserved than not. Sorry. Vagrant Vagabond of Variant Vistas, who's been a member for 18 months, says, free food! I add emojis, but mobile hates emojis. Something AIG is a bag of Kents. Alright, we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. And I will Why? Oh, right. That's a membership milestone chat, which is why I'm not adding anything to the counter.
And they froze.
No, kid. Here's the thing, right? If they froze, then they would look much more like they did in life. But instead, they tend to be emaciated and shrunken down, and they all have that bog mummy red hair, right? This is actually just a mummy thing. When things are preserved by relatively lengthy processes like desiccation in a desert, or being preserved in mild acid solutions like in bogs, things like that, or being desiccated by nitrates like the Egyptian mummies, it tends to turn the hair reddish. That's why human mummies have reddish hair. That's why the recent saber-toothed cat kittens that were found tend to have reddish hair. The woolly rhinos tend to have reddish hair. That's not actually what's happening. They're not actually having reddish hair. But if you just flash freeze hair, it's going to keep the original coat color. And we have good reason to think, based on actual studies of the hair as well as genetic studies, to think that mammoths actually probably had like dark brown to black fur, not red fur. So, yeah, we have pretty good reason to think that they weren't flash frozen. All right, here we go.
They're not all found this way, but a few have been, okay? They died of suffocation. And there are numerous different ways that they can tell.
Well, there's a fair chance they drowned, so okay, yeah. But also, I don't think that you actually have any source for that, Kent.
They died of suffocation. Walt Brown has a great section on that in his book. You ought to read that technical section on what happened to the mammoths.
In case you're wondering, Walt Brown is also the guy who did the hydroplate theory, which Kent kind of subscribes to. It is the crazier cousin of catastrophic plate tectonics. It has an even bigger heat problem than AIG normally has to deal with because they go with catastrophic plate tectonics. It's basically been abandoned by every young Earth creationist. Even Randy Galuza, as crazy as he is among young Earth creationists, isn't on board with Walt Brown anymore. So, yeah. But also, I gotta say, we got 77 people watching, but only 32 likes, which means, I'm sorry, but I know half of you half as well as I should, and I like less than half of you as well as you deserve. So, why don't you hit like? Because you got Bilbo'd.
In Bilbo chat.
Yeah, don't get Bilbo'd. A like a day keeps the Bilbo away. It even got worse, because since I said it, we've gained more viewers, but I didn't see this likes go up commensurately.
Oh, no.
Also, commensurately might be one of the bigger words I can say while I am, in fact, this inebriated. So, Eve of Everything sends a $5 super chat, which is their 10th super chat. And there is no message. Thank you very much, Eve of Everything. I really appreciate it. Oh, wait, it's not $5. It's $5 redues. Thank you very much. So, hello from the past. I know that you're living in the future where it's probably like the second day of Christmas already. I don't know. Roshina Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, AIG is a Louis Vuitton bag full of the thing you found in the guest room your grandma was using. Luckily, that never happened to me, but I'll take a drink for it anyway. Goodness. Let's see. That 94%, I believe we get, Ben gets free pizza at like 98 or 99%. I don't know if you guys know, but every time we get to Fancy Avatar, the number that it takes to get there goes up a little bit. But the number it takes to get Bent free pizza stays the same. Mm-hmm. We have passed the threshold where they were equal. Now we're into the threshold where Bent gets free pizza easier than I use a Fancy Avatar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice for Bent, at least.
And hey, I mean, it's nice for everyone else because you get fancy avatars and also to help a poor little doggy.
Mm-hmm.
So. Oh, I do want to make there was one thing I forgot to say. So the fundraiser, the way that me giving half of this is going to go, is I'm going to give half of the proceeds from this directly to the fundraiser, unless the amount that needed to finish the fundraiser is less than half, in which case I will just top up the fundraiser, and then Bent will close it. Because this is a fundraiser to help offset or eliminate the costs of the veterinarian bills, not just to make a bunch of money off you guys. So that is why I'm going to do it that way, because I I don't want it to feel like I'm just trying to like milk money out of you guys for my own personal benefit. This is primarily to help Bent pay for Carmen's medical fees because they were substantial. And if you were wondering how substantial, there is a link to a scan or an image or whatever of the bill on the GoFundMe, which is currently at, let's double check, $250. So thank you very much. All right. Forgot to say that earlier. I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to hit play.
Now his theory is slightly different than mine. Same general concept, but a little bit different idea of what happened to the mammoths. The small ice crystals in the blood indicate they probably froze in less than 5 hours.
I would love to see a source on this. One of the things Kent has been doing lately is not even pretending to have a source. Like, a lot of times he puts up a textbook or something, and he gets what's in the textbook wrong, but at least he has some kind of thing up there. Or he'll be like, yeah, you can call Jim Bob, here's his number, and he'll put a number up there. But one of the things I want you to notice is with this, he doesn't even do that. He's just like, 15-foot tall camel, and some guy on a boat told me that there was a 300-foot tall piece of wood in the ground in Barrow, Alaska. And the size of the crystals indicate that the animal is frozen in 5 minutes. The sources for any of this? Just, some guy. Oh, okay. One of the things about science is if you want to make a claim, you have to back up the claim. Now, you can back that up with your own original research and your own original experimentation. That's fine. You have to back it up and show your results and show you how you got those results, if that's what you're going to do. And if you're going to get the claim from someone else, you have to reference them. So the fact that Kent thinks that he's going to be the guy who overturns the scientific consensus, or that he has evidence that overturns the scientific consensus at all, should mean that he should have excellent citations. Instead, he usually basically just has none. Renee, intellectually gerrymandered reborn for $5, says, went to like the stream and my browser decided to stop working with a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a Ghidorah. Yeah, that sucks. Reminds me when OBS decided to just stop working earlier. So thank you very much. I will update the counter. I have to be more careful with it now. I can't do it without looking at the number pad anymore. I don't have the attention to detail for that at this point. And I blame Joshua Geese because, one, thank you for being so generous, but also, geez, man, I'm on like a third shot of tequila and we're only like a half an hour in.
If ice freezes real slowly, the crystals grow big.
That's broadly true.
If you take water and freeze it real fast, the crystals are very tiny.
Or non-existent, which gets you amorphous ice, which is the best kind of ice for those little otter pops. You know, the ones where you toss them in the freezer, and each one is in its own little plastic sleeve that cuts the corners of your mouth? Okay, I've said this before, but don't toss them in your freezer. Instead, get liquid nitrogen. Dump them in the liquid nitrogen, then toss them in your freezer to warm up. Then eat them. Because you know how those otter pops, they get little jaggedy crystals in the middle? And then there's like little pockets of like less melt or less frozen like juice. If you flash freeze it with liquid nitrogen, it's like perfectly homogeneous. There are no crystals, and it's so much better. I had that in the Navy. Remember there was like a friends and family cruise or something where like civilians could come on board and hang out for a little bit. One of the things they did was they opened up the liquid nitrogen and liquid oxygen bay where the ship condensed those. And as like a thing for like their friends and family, they were freezing otter pops in the liquid nitrogen. And I grabbed one of those.
Oh, nice.
It was by far the best otter pop I had ever had in my entire life. It's amazingly so much better than just tossing them in the freezer. It's hard to even describe how much better it is. So it's a lot of work. It's also not very safe. But, you know, take all precautions. It's way better that way. Also, it's a different phase of ice. Ice that you get in your freezer is ice 1. This is not even one of the numbered ices. This is amorphous ice, which comes out of the numbered ices, because the numbered ices are different geometric arrangements of the ice crystals. So, there you go.
Like when you make rock candy. I don't know if we never did that, did we, growing up? You take sugar and put it in water and boil it. And as you keep it boiling and boiling, you just keep adding sugar. until it won't dissolve anymore. The hotter you get it, the more sugar it will absorb. It'll go way beyond the saturation point. Cold water won't dissolve.
You know what? He's right about that. That is how you make rock candy. You do then have to like lower a little string into that solution. Usually you put a little bit of sugar on the string itself to form a nucleation site. But like, yeah, he's basically right. That is the basic idea of how to make rock candy. So we'll take a drink for that. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, on the first night of Christmas, real life gave to me a slow draining toilet. I blame the knapsack of Sicilians, that is AIG, with a Mothra emoji. We'll take a drink for that, thank you. Yeah, that sucks, Metageeky. I'm sorry. I don't have a whole lot of advice for that. I am not a plumber. In fact, even when I was supposed to memorize, like, piping diagrams, for some reason in the Navy, I sucked at it. Which is one of those weird things. I was an electrician, and they were like, you have to memorize these 80 different pipe diagrams. And I'm just like, okay, but why? I'm like, because you need to know them. I'm like, okay. You know how many times it actually came in handy to know any of those piping diagrams?
Never.
Never once. It was completely pointless. It was just busy work. So...
much sugar. That's why if you make iced tea and then add the sugar, it falls to the bottom.
Yep, Kent thinks that is, yeah, you make sweet tea by putting the sugar in when it's hot. Good.
It won't absorb it. But if you add the sugar while you're boiling the tea, like the...
But what does this have to do with the freezing of water? Because these are different phenomena, right? So the reason that this supersaturation works with boiling water is because essentially the water molecules are moving around really, really fast. And so the average size, the distance between the water molecules is bigger, which means you can dissolve more into there because there's just literally more space to dissolve things into. Okay, cool. But when you're freezing things, what's actually happening is that the hydrogen bonds are geometrically arranging water molecules into low energy configurations. And the reason that you get bigger crystals as you do this more slowly is that you have a longer time in which the water molecules don't have a low enough energy to enter the regular molecular arrangement for a crystal, which means the time that it takes for crystals to meet each other is longer, and you are less likely to form new nucleation sites where new crystals form, which means the crystals are on average bigger. These aren't the same phenomenon, Kent. I don't know why we're talking about it. Oh, and of course it is unwelcome nuance, as Triceratops says.
People in the South know how to make the real sweet tea. Them Yankees don't know how to make it, stuff up there.
You know what, Kent? You are right about that. Northerners, the Yankees, they just do not know how to make sweet tea. That's why I hate Massachusetts when you get iced tea. Like, do you want sugar or not with that? I was like, well, of course I want sugar. And what they mean by that is they're just going to pour a packet of sugar into your tea as it's ice cold, which does nothing. Don't get me started on Yankees trying to do things like sweet tea or grits. Ugh. I actually had a whole conversation with a coworker once about why, outside the South, I don't order grits in restaurants if I notice that the chef is white, because they always make watery grits. And so, in the South, it doesn't matter because they all know. But if you're in the North, you have to get an African American to make the grits in the restaurant because they will know, because it's, one, a Southern thing, but it's also just a broad African American thing. Like, eating grits is a part of their culture. So they know not to water it down too much. And like, I had a whole long conversation about why grits suck most of the time in the North. Roshina, Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, does Kent understand water is an industrial solvent for a reason? I doubt that he does. Also, oh goodness, my page ran out of memory. That's a bad sign. Computer, why you do this to me? So when you have grits, right, you should be able to take a spoonful of grits and pull it up, and it should not level off on the spoon. It's just, there should be a mound when you pull the grits out of the bowl with your spoon. And if there is no mound, and it just runs off the sides, your grits are too watery, and you need to learn how to make better grits. And there it is. Bent gets free pizza at 97%.
Yay!
So, Bent, you are getting free pizza for Christmas, as well as for
Awesome.
Christmas having, your vet bills dramatically alleviated. So,
But I appreciate that immensely.
yes, and do remember, giving directly to Bent via the GoFundMe, which is in the pinned chat comment or whatever. It is highly encouraged. Please do that if that is your primary goal in offering money is to help Bent. He gets to keep a larger percentage of that. So, yeah, that is also greatly appreciated. Vadim says, "What are grits?" So grits are a form of hominy corn. You grind it up into coarse grains, and that is dried out usually, and then it is boiled to make a corn porridge. By corn, I mean maize in this circumstance. It is usually eaten with savory additions like salt, pepper, and butter. Sometimes even cheese, shrimp, other things. It is a breakfast dish enjoyed primarily in the southern United States, well, the southeastern United States, into the south, like Texas and east of that. It is also enjoyed in larger sections of the United States by the African American community, because African Americans who live in most other places in the United States are predominantly, in terms of ancestry, actually people who went north after the Civil War in an effort to get better jobs and better economic activity or opportunities, because even though slavery had ended, there were huge, by law, discrimination against them. And so they went to places like the Northeast, Michigan, places like this to get better jobs, to make better lives for themselves. And they brought with them a lot of their food traditions. And so that is why, even if you're not in the South, if you have an African American cook who's making your grits, you're pretty well assured to get good grits, because that's part of their food culture. It's also why soul food is something that you can find outside of the South. And soul food is, yet again, basically Southern cooking carried forward by African Americans into other parts of the country. There is also some aspect of which it is not exactly identical to just general Southern cuisine, because there are also various aspects in which they use relatively lower value cuts of meat, like organ meats, to produce some of the food, which white Southerners tend not to eat. But I don't want to get into U.S. food culture too deeply, even though it is interesting.
Hey, add the sugar later. No wonder it tastes terrible. But
he's right.
But add the sugar while you're boiling it.
Mm-hmm.
You can take water.
Roshina Polydactyl Jesus. I'm sorry, I have the wrong tab open. Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, "I had great tasting grits in Romania." Really? That is fascinating. Or maybe there was something called Mamaliga. I don't know what the accent mark is indicating for Romanian. I'm sorry. Who knows anymore? And apparently Vishanti is very excited because that food dish was mentioned. So I might have to try that sometime. Also, hey, you know pimento loaf, Bent?
Okay.
That is made out of ground maize bits that are exactly the same as what you make grits out of.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Yep. Pimento loaf is basically just the same thing as grits, except denser.
Water and boil it, and just keep adding sugar. And if you see it collecting on the bottom, raise the temperature.
Okay, but Kent, if the water is boiling, you literally can't raise the temperature. Do you think Kent knows that you can't make boiling water hotter? You can just make it boil harder?
I don't think Kent understands that, no.
Okay, it's more or less Romanian polenta, which is the same thing. Okay. Alright, fair enough. I will try that someday. Maybe I need a recipe, though. So I'm just going to take a drink for Kent, apparently not realizing that once water gets the boiling point, you literally can't raise its temperature. You can just make it boil faster. You know what I haven't had in a long time is wheat berries.
Whose fault is that?
It's mine. It's mine. Oh, okay. That has reminded me, because the last time I got wheat berries, I just ordered them from Amazon. I am going to ask people specifically to not get me things from my Amazon wish list until after the strikes at the Amazon centers are over. So if you see a gift that you want to get me from my Amazon wish list, just wait. Put that money aside if you want to, that's fine. But until the strikes are over, I would prefer that no one buy me anything from my Amazon wish list. I'm not asking that other people follow with me in that. I'm not asking that you boycott Amazon. I am just saying I would prefer not to receive gifts from my Amazon wish list until after the strikes are resolved, in solidarity with the strike as a whole. So, there you go.
Get what's called a supersaturated solution beyond the normal saturation point by simply heating it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say this glass of water would normally hold 3 tablespoons of sugar at room temperature. Well, if I boil it, I can get 6 tablespoons of sugar to dissolve.
Remember, this is all supposed to be about how fast crystals grow in freezing water, and we're at the opposite end. Becca Justiniano says the union is calling for people to keep ordering because it will cause problems for management. Okay, I did not know that. This is news to me. In which case, I will say this. Get anything you want from my wish list, but especially do it during the strike. If you ever think you might want something for me for my wish list, get it today. Or otherwise during the strike. I didn't. Oh, and the A with the little accent mark is just a schwa. Oh, okay. So that's a lot of those. So what does that come out to then? Now I have to scroll up to see what the actual food was. Mamiliga. Mamiliga. Man. Okay, that's a lot of schwas. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, sorry. I retract my statement. Please, if you were ever going to get me something for my Amazon wish list, do it now while the strike is going to make problems for management. Because while I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, we should get rid of Amazon, look, it's never going to happen. It's too integrated into our society. It's like Amazon is here for at least the rest of my life. But their working conditions are terrible, and I want to have some solidarity with those strikers. And if what they want is purchases, make purchases for yourself. And if you were ever going to get me something from my wish list, I guess now's the time. So let's see. Coop23 said, I heard through the grapevine that the striking workers are asking people to cancel Amazon Prime memberships, but I don't have a super good source for that. Okay. I will look into that. Because I do have an Amazon Prime membership, and I almost never think about it.
If I just keep it getting keep it real hot, I might get 7 or 8 tablespoons to dissolve in there. Then you can take a pencil, lay it across the top with a string hanging down, or several strings down into the solution, and let it cool down very slowly. As it cools, the extra sugar is going to have to crystallize.
Right, because, well, it won't have to, but what will happen is that there will be nucleation points where crystallization can start. And because the crystal is a much lower energy state for that matter to be in versus supersaturated state, which is not very stable, the natural, like the thermodynamically preferred state is crystallized, which will mean that overall molecules of sugar, in the case of rock candy, are more likely to start crystallizing, less likely. But that's not exactly the same phenomenon as how fast ice crystals grow while water is freezing.
Because at room temperature, it's only going to hold 3 spoonfuls, and I've got 7 in there. So where's it going to go? Well, it'll crystallize to anything that it can touch. So it'll start to form crystals on the string. Rock. Yeah, add some food coloring. Rock candy. You can buy it stores all over, rock candy. That's what it is. Now, if I let it cool down very slowly, let's say I let the temperature drop 1 degree per minute.
Okay.
I'll get big crystals. If it drops 5 degrees per minute, I'll get small crystals.
Yeah, that's less true for rock crystal formation, rock candy formation, but like whatever. Now at this point, he is kind of talking about a similar phenomenon.
So by looking at the size of the crystals that are formed, you can tell how fast it froze. And the ice crystals in the blood of the mammoths are real tiny, which is a very, I think, pretty airtight proof that they froze very rapidly.
That would be, if you had a source, Kent.
The other thing that tells us they froze quickly is the food in their stomach would continue to rot after the animal died.
That depends heavily on the environment.
I mean, hydrochloric...
Hiroshima Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, Merry new Doctor Who episode Eve. Merry new Doctor Who episode Eve to you two. I am assuming that there will be another single episode companion, as is typical. And also, we got the fancy avatar and Pink Tutu. Now, Bent already owes you a Pink Tutu, which means, Bent, you now have double Pink Tutu duty, which means either you have to buy a new Pink Tutu and wear two of them, or you have to wear them on consecutive Kent with Bents.
We'll go consecutive Kent with Bents.
You sure you don't want to have a second tutu?
Yeah, because, like, how could you tell I'm wearing two?
You would put one on top of your head like a hat, and the other one around your neck like normal.
I mean, maybe.
Okay.
You know what we could do is do a poll and see what chat prefers.
No, because I don't want to actually have to make you buy a second tutu. That sounds like a dick move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, chat, you don't get your wish.
I mean, they could start just adding you, I suppose, like at Bethoven, no relation, and then just keep requesting it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
So,
acid works whether his stomach acid doesn't know he's dead, right? Nor does it care. It's going to keep doing its job. It's going to dissolve the food.
Right, but Kent, the food that you're talking about is mostly cellulose, and stomach acid is really, 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 really crappy at dissolving cellulose. So, you know, there's a reason why elephant poop is almost entirely intact plant matter, and why elephants have to eat so much. And remember, mammoths are elephants, right? Like, if the African elephant is an elephant, and the Asian elephant is an elephant, then anything more closely related to the Asian elephant than to the African elephant is an elephant, right? That's how monophyly works. And guess what? Mammoths are more closely related to Asian elephants than they are to African elephants, which makes them elephants. Add Pink Tutu to the wish list. Maybe. Well, it'll be a maybe.
And yet the food is not dissolved. So if you have these problems with the small ice crystals...
It's not just dissolved, it's whatever. Chemically broken down, dissolved. I stopped caring. Kent Bohemian Devonian Denisovan Halstead for $4.99 says, this tangent has gone on for so long that it forms a lever long enough for Archimedes to move the Earth. Excellent reference. That is really good. I like that. All right, so let me update this. We're going to be going on a quick break real soon here. One that Bent will not have to talk about Star Trek episodes he hasn't seen for. Which, Bent, by the way, catch up on Lower Decks.
I'll get to it.
You won't. You're lying to me. I can tell.
It'll be 5 years, but I'll get to it.
Goodness. All right. We're going to get a little bit more Kent in. We're going to go on break pretty soon. Ooh, a different color tutu. That's a good point. You get like a blue tutu.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
Crystals and undigested food, then you have to conclude they froze extremely rapidly.
Kent, I disagree about the food, but I do agree about the crystals. If the crystals are small enough, you would have to make that conclusion. But how many reasons has Kent given me for believing that the crystals are too small to have formed over the course of years?
He's giving you his word.
Yeah.
Which means nothing.
It means less than nothing. Anything that I'm supposed to believe on the basis that Kent Hovind said it is something I think is more likely false than true. Because if all I have to go on is that Kent said it, having listened to Kent, he says more false things than true things, which means I don't believe him.
I talked to a guy who shot a deer, or hit a deer one time with his car. No, hit a moose. Where was that? In Maine.
Well, moose are deer, but okay.
Okay. He went back the next day because he thought he might have killed it. He hit it at night. He hit it pretty hard, but he was able to drive on.
I am skeptical of this story immediately. Moose are built like tanks, and generally speaking, if you hit one, you're going to come off worse than that moose. So, I am already extremely skeptical of this story.
He went back the next day, and sure enough, he had killed the moose, and the outside 6 inches of...
Okay, I don't believe this story. This is a story that didn't happen. I'm taking a drink. Look, moose are taller than most horses. They weigh a huge amount. If you hit a moose with basically any personal vehicle, your vehicle is done. And that moose will probably live long enough to wander off. Hitting a moose is no joke. I do not believe this story. Yeah, as Joran Deck says, was he driving a tank? Yeah, exactly. Moose are not to be trifled with. They are dangerous, they are gigantic, and they will screw you up whether you're in a car or not. There's back where I grew up, not too far away, there was a highway that was famous for having a lot of moose and some really good like autumn foliage viewing. And I remember getting all the safety warnings about like, hey, it's cool to drive by a moose, but don't stop. Don't get out to take pictures. Just keep on going. Just continue on your way. And also, maybe drive a little slower because of the moose. And Roach and a Polydactyl Jesus Killer for $4.99 says, "'Twas a baby meese?" Yeah, maybe it was a moose calf. That might be believable, that it was a moose calf. It was a full-grown moose. I don't buy this story.
The moose had frozen because it was like 20 below zero. But when he cut into it...
Where was this that it was 20 below zero? Because moose require wetlands, right? Like, they primarily feed underwater. Okay, look, I'm going to double-check the range of the moose, right? And see where they live. Okay, you know what? They do live in northern Canada and Alaska. So maybe it was minus 20, and this guy just happened to live in, like, Nunavut or Alaska or some crap. So, alright, sure, maybe Kent. I'm not going to disbelieve that part just because of how cold it was. We got a couple things. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, "A moose once bit my sister. She was carving her initials on the moose with the sharp end of an interspiced toothbrush given to her by Sven Ham." Trails off. You know what? It's not a drink trigger, but I'm going to drink for that excellent Monty Python and the Holy Grail subtitles reference there. Bitcourse, who's been a member for 22 months, says, and is at the amnio level, says, "Mary AIG is a bag of dicks." Mary AIG is a bag of dicks to you too, and I will take a drink for that. And yeah, Dragon Healer says, "Moose are pretty far north." Yep, I double checked, and my internal guess as to where moose lived was not correct. But see, that's the thing. When I'm not very confident on something, I do this thing called checking. That Kent, I don't think, has ever done in his entire adult life. And that's the thing. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to think that something is the case that's not. What you do is you check. And when you find out good evidence that you're wrong, accept it. Just say, yeah, I guess I was wrong. That's the key difference between being a pseudoscientist like Kent Hovind and being someone who is like, I'm not a scientist, but I'm like scientifically literate. You double check. And when you find out that you're wrong, just own it. It's fine. Being wrong is okay. What's not okay is finding out that you're wrong and then just continuing to be wrong anyway. That's the biggest difference between myself and Kent. I mean, also, I don't tend to just not pay taxes and then brag about it. I instead just do pay my taxes and then don't talk about it, because why would you want to hear about my taxes? So, which are coming up. Ugh. Oh well. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine, for $5 says, "I vote for Ben to get a white and also a blue tutu, and wear all three in a particular order. I want this because of reasons." Okay. Tremo, the math kitty, who's been a member for 15 months and is at the amniote level, says, "You know, Kent just might actually be illiterate. I think that there's very good evidence that he is not functionally literate. He does not read at an adult level." So yeah, I have long maintained that I think Kent is only barely literate and might just be functionally illiterate. Let's see. Jake, insert clever dapper dinosaur. Sorry, just insert clever dapper inside joke here. Nelson, who's been a member for 23 months and is at the amulet level, says Ken should have checked on structuring laws. Yes, he absolutely should have, and he absolutely did not do that. So, all right. So here's what's going to happen. I am going to switch to a intermission. There will be a little commercial for the next Star Trek Adventures game, which will not be this week. It will be hopefully the week after. And then after that, it will hopefully be the musical stylings of one Beethoven, who is right here in a wonderful Santa hat, because you guys got us to that super chat goal. Also, we are... I don't know why I didn't say it, but we did actually hit the super chat goal for a third hour today. So we will be going for a third hour. Yeah. So that's where we are. We're going to take our first break. We're probably going to take another break after second hour so I can, refresh my drink and whatnot. But I got to say thank you guys so much. You guys have been amazing. Helping out me and Bent with the whole thing with Carmen. We're going to go over it again after we come back. Do remember, there is a GoFundMe directly for Bent, linked in the description. It is currently at $300, which is 20% of the goal, and half of the profit from this stream is going to go to that GoFundMe. I already sent Bent by direct transfer from our banks the money from the previous show on Saturday. Bent, could you just confirm that you did in fact get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I showed you the metrics from YouTube to demonstrate that I was giving you half, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're... I know you guys trust me on this one. I just want to make sure that there's no room. That Ben definitely got that money. I sent it to him, and I'm sending it to I'm sending today's money to the GoFundMe, just so there's extra no doubt. I will try to make sure my name is Dapper Dinosaur in there. If I remember, I might not, but we'll go with it. All right. Please stand by, and we will be showing you a teaser trailer for Star Trek Adventures, Star Trek Lexington, and then hopefully the musical stylings of Beethoven. Who is you, Bent?
Well, that's me.
All right. Next time on Star Trek Lexington.
Captain's Log, Stardate 6652.1. The Lexington has been ordered by Admiral Stoker to the planet Taurus 2 in the Murasaki 312 cluster. The planet was first surveyed a year and a half ago by the USS Enterprise, which nearly resulted in the death of the whole landing party, led by Commander Spock. The Admiral believes that the ionic storms the planet is known for may be connected to potential Tilakal ruins under the surface, and we are tasked with investigating. We'll have to visit the planet covertly, because the natives are still in their Stone Age, and they're also known to be aggressive and stand about 3 meters tall. So not only is the Prime Directive a concern, but they pose a significant physical threat to any landing party personnel. I'm organizing a landing party, and I'm considering issuing phaser rifles set to stun, but I'll consult with Mr. Croc about that.
The crew will find the Taurians are much changed, which may be a rare blessing. However, contradictory sensory readings and ion storms will strand the landing party. Can they navigate reality-breaking energies, dangerous environments, and natives still protected by the Prime Directive to get back home? Was the Murasaki 312 Nebula a former Tilakal stronghold, as Admiral Stoker suspects? Find out next time on Star Trek Lexington, only on the Top Hats Off channel. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are back. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Those of you who did, which is most people. Got a couple things to read here. Prixie Purple, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, Church of Dapper Ministry, no more taxes with a Mothra. Yes. I'm sorry. This isn't my money. This is Dino Jesus's money. You can't have it, IRS. We'll take a drink for that. Joran Dex for $5 says, Commander, set a new course. There's sausage in that AIG, and we'll take a drink. Amazing. There's coffee in that nebula. It's still one of my favorite lines in just Star Trek. Not just Star Trek Voyager, just Star Trek.
Yeah, I do like that line a lot.
It really is good. Let's update the fundraising counter. Thank you very much. All right, so normally at this point, I would talk about how to support the channel, Patreon, all that stuff. And sure, join the Patreon, join the memberships. But what I'm going to say right now is today is about helping to offset or even possibly eliminate the vet costs for what amounts to an emergency surgery for a dog, right? Carmen, who is the source of the small dog emoji that we have on the channel. She is just a tiny little sweetheart. She loves cuddles. She loves to run around. She likes to play with ropes. Those are some of her favorite things. Cuddling, zooming, and ropes, I think what I could say are her favorite non-food things. Yeah. And, you know, she's normally very healthy, but she has a few problems, glandular problems, and sometimes that needs a thing, and we're hoping that she doesn't have cancer. But the most cost-effective way, if your primary goal is just to help out with that, is the fundraiser, which is linked in the pinned chat. Go there, donate some money. Let's see where it is right now. It was at 300 last we checked, and it's at 310 now. So I want to say a special thank you to Lance, Dennis, and Steven, who have donated since last we checked. Half the profit that this stream makes today is going to be donated to that, unless that would bring us over the goal, in which case I'm just going to get us to the goal. So please help out with that, because, look, Bent, you're a disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a wonderful career stripped from you by the malpractice of the Veterans Affairs Office.
Yes, I did.
And
I'm
as a
not
result,
happy about that.
no. As a result, things like sudden vet bills are... It's a big deal, basically.
It's a huge deal.
So
Yeah.
that is why we are asking for your help with this. By the way, I did start a new Super Chat goal. If in the next... What is it? 53 minutes and 30 whatever seconds, we can get 20 more teal super chats or above, I will tomorrow, probably around midday my time, stream an at least hour-long AMA. It's here on the channel. You can come and ask me any question. Now, I do reserve the right to refuse to answer certain questions, and if it's something I've said that I'm not going to talk about on the channel, like my religious affiliation, I'm not going to answer it. But I will take any questions. So there we go. And there's a pretty good chance that unless we meet like the fundraiser goal for on the GoFundMe like tonight, that half of whatever proceeds I get from that will also go towards the helping out with the Carmen bill. So all right. That being said, hey, apparently the Amazon workers want people to order from Amazon, so check out my Amazon wishlist or Ben's. They're both linked in the description.
The inside had begun to rot. Well, the body heat's trapped.
But the body heat isn't trapped if something drowned in a bog, because the bog water is going to quickly leach away all that heat, because water has a really good thermal conductivity and specific heat capacity. That's why you get cold so fast in a pool. Lubilar says, copy, the finest organic suspension ever devised, Captain Janeway. My Trek-loving late husband's favorite Voyager quote. It is a great one. Sorry to hear that your husband has passed away, but he was right to think of that as one of the greatest Voyager quotes. Look, Janeway is all of us when it comes to caffeine addiction. Unless I guess I have Mormons watching, in which case I guess she's not you, but that's okay. Actually, a lot of Mormons do have a caffeine addiction. They just get it from Diet Coke. Because it's not a hot beverage. Tremo, the math kitty, for $10 says, ugh, being a disabled vet can be very sucks. Also, Genesis and Genesis, Enai Mia Ti Sonata, Santa Apo Utses, which I'm going to go ahead and just say is Greek for AIG is a bag of dicks, because I am way too drunk to be trying to read Greek, guys. What do you think this is? Goodness, trying to make me read Greek and Romanian. Give me some Klingon. I can read Klingon. Actually, I might not be that far away from the point where it starts to get hard to filter out the Klingon.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's a thing that might happen. So in case you guys don't know, so when you speak more than one language, if you think in a language, which can sometimes just happen spontaneously, you might just start to think in one of the languages you know. It takes conscious effort to suppress that language and then speak in whatever your language you're wanting to speak in. And alcohol lowers your inhibitions, which means if you're multilingual and you sometimes think in more than one language, as you drink, you get less and less able to filter out the language you don't want and only speak in the language you do want. Which makes it more and more likely as I get more and more tequila that I will just spontaneously use Klingon or French or Spanish, which are the only languages that I typically actually ever have thoughts in. And I'll be honest, English is first and then Klingon is second, and French and Spanish are not that close. So Carnival Frog has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. Let's get 5 drinks in here. 1, 2. I got some raspberry chunks there. Hold on. 3, 4, 5. Vadim Rajenko says, so all pigeons are drunk babies? Sure, why not? Also, Vadim says, don't complain or people will give you check or finish. I just will get those wrong. That's the thing, right? I'll just get them wrong. Like, I got that Greek wrong. It was okay, but it was still wrong. All right, here's more.
The ice on the outside makes an insulator. It freezes from the outside in. So it traps the heat. Just in 24 hours, it spoiled the meat.
Okay, but Kent, the meat was already acid preserved, is the thing, right? So, like, whatever.
Because of all the heat. So when they kill these moose, they cut them open and cut it in pieces so it freezes from all sides. Okay. Well, in order to freeze an elephant all the way to the center in less than 5 hours, you have to get it in something really, really cold, like 300 below zero. Walt Brown says 150 below zero. He may be right, I don't know. But the people I called...
I like how Kent is just admitting, like, I didn't do any math on this, I'm just saying. Like, Kent, this is your claim. You should have done the math on this. It's a heat transfer problem. It's not like it requires tensor calculus or something. Like, just do the math. You claim to have been a math teacher for like 15 years or something. Do the math. This is one of the things that really gets me about Kent, is just how little he cares about backing up anything he says. We were talking about this before we even went on air, where Kent will just hear something that sounds good to him, and he will just take it as the gospel truth. Right? Like, it is the word of God that someone drilled through 300 feet of tree trunk in Barrow, Alaska while looking for oil. What's his source? Some guy on a boat told him that. But, okay. Sure, Kent. Maybe he did tell you that. And it's just like, I just can't imagine. Because even when I was like a kid in school, right? If someone said something to me that seemed super implausible, I didn't just accept it, even if it would be fun if it were true. Right? Because lots of things that aren't true Would be fun if they were. That doesn't actually make them true, though. Tremo the Math Kitty for $3 says, you need a scale, Kent. Minus 300 Celsius doesn't exist. So Kent, I believe, would pretty much always be using Fahrenheit. But you are correct that minus 300 Celsius, yeah. So I just assume that Kent is always using Fahrenheit unless he states otherwise. Because Kent is... He's every negative stereotype of an American that has ever existed. Like, all of them. My Unfinished Sock for $2 says, don't dodge your taxes, like and share the stream. I agree with all of these things. Like, it actually reminds me, right? So, every once in a while, I watch, like, a sovereign citizen be dumb in court. And here's the thing, right? Like, I sympathize. There's a whole lot of stuff that the federal government does that I'm not okay with and that I wish I didn't have to pay for. To the point that, like, I feel like I might be morally justified in not paying my taxes. However, it's a really dumb thing to do, right? Because they'll find out, and they'll come after you, and your options will be financial ruin, prison. And even if you're right that you shouldn't have to owe them those taxes, which, again, I have some sympathy for, based on what they do with that tax money, doesn't matter. No one involved is going to care about that. They're just going to use violence or the threat of violence to put you in a cage. Don't get put in a cage. It's a bad idea. It's not worth it to just not pay your taxes. So just pay your taxes, man. Fight that fight in the courts if you really want to by suing them. You're going to lose. But, like, don't just not pay your taxes. It's not worth it. Pay your taxes. Minimize your tax burden in as many legal ways as you can. Because you know what? I don't agree with Donald Trump on much, but he's not wrong when he says it's smart to take advantage of as many tax loopholes as you can. Yeah, it is. Now, I think that that's a reason to close tax loopholes for at least very, very wealthy people. But while they exist, if you're not taking advantage of them, you're just dumb. But that being said, pay the taxes you do owe. So Baba Ali says, what if all not pay our taxes? Well, I mean, okay, that would be a problem, but that's not that the government couldn't just overcome with violence, but that's not going to happen. Like, don't throw your years of your life away that you're never going to get back in the hopes that there's a universal tax protest. That's not going to happen. Don't do it. It's not worth it. If you don't want to pay taxes, just go be homeless and don't have an income. It's really easy. It sucks, but it's easy.
Bird's Eye Frozen Food People and others said you would need about 300 below zero in order to freeze an elephant in 5 hours. Remember the liquid nitrogen?
I really want to see whatever correspondence Kent has between Bird's Eye Food and himself concerning freezing an elephant. Because I bet it doesn't exist. So, yeah. Annoyed at Fraudulent Grifters, Gladstone says, with the upcoming changes to our government, I suggest everyone legally change their name to Elon Musk to avoid paying taxes. Yeah, unfortunately, it probably won't work. Because they'll track you by your social security number if you're in the United States. So, let's see. Myral Randar, for 19 months, who's been a member for 19 months and was at the Tetchball level, says, AIG are in Flusken of Stora Kulor, which I'm pretty sure is AIG or a bag of dicks, so I'm going to take a drink. And I don't know what language that is, but I'm going to guess Norwegian. Probably wrong. But it looks... Actually, it looks very, very Germanic. So, like, having something like R for the verb to be, and then Flasken, like flask. Yeah, that's an extremely Germanic phrase there. So while I can't tell what language it is, I can usually have a pretty good guess as to which language family it is.
We had here, you know, how fast it freezes a hot dog or a banana or stuff like that. That's about 312 below zero, I believe, is the temperature for nitrogen.
Okay, so he said 312 is the freezing point for nitrogen, which means if I can find out nitrogen freezing point Fahrenheit, which is minus 346, which is not the same as 312, but it tells me about the range where he's thinking in. So yeah, he's thinking in Fahrenheit. Okay, So that clears up that little question there. Right. So when Kent is giving these temperatures, he's primarily doing Fahrenheit. And okay, so Jorandex is close. It was Swedish. Okay. I do not feel too bad for mixing up Norwegian and Swedish. I mean, they're very similar languages. There's a high degree of mutual intelligibility for good reason. Okay. I should just look. It's almost never been Norwegian on this channel. It's almost always been Swedish. I should just stop guessing Norwegian ever and only guess Swedish if I think it's any kind of like Nordic Germanic language. Obviously, it's not Finnish because Finnish wouldn't look Germanic. Which, of course, you know that, Bent.
Do I?
Yeah, I don't need to tell you that Finnish is actually a Finno-Ugric language and not a Germanic language in any way, and that Finno-Ugric languages like Estonian, Finnish, and Hungarian aren't even Indo-European. You know that.
Do I?
I mean, you could just say yes, and I'll just accept that you're very smart about that.
Yes.
There you go. I'm throwing you a bone, man. Don't spit it back.
At liquid. Well, the coldest temperature ever recorded at the South Pole was
At the South Pole? Did he just say the South Pole? I'm gonna rewind a little
He did
bit.
say the South Pole. That's what he said.
12 below zero, I believe, is the temperature for nitrogen at liquid. Well, the coldest temperature ever recorded at the South Pole was 127 below.
Okay, Vostok Station. I'm thinking Vladivostok. All right, never mind. Okay, cool. Sure. Minus 127 Fahrenheit. Okay.
Zero. I just saw something on the news the other night. They broke the record, 129 below zero or something like that.
Vadim Verchenko says Ugaritic, right? Well, I mean, Ugaritic is a Semitic language. It's like a Northwest Semitic language, like Hebrew is. In fact, it's barely different from Hebrew overall. So, and Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith, there we go, sorry, says Dapper Dinosaur is not a linguist. Correct, I am not a linguist. What could possibly give anyone the impression that I, of all people, am a linguist? What do you, Ben? Do you get why people keep thinking I'm a linguist?
It might be your knowledge of linguistics.
Okay, but I mean, I'm not a paleontologist. I know a lot about paleontology.
You sure you're not a paleontologist, though?
Pretty confident.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah, I do. Just now. All right. Rochino Polydactyl Jesus Keller from 499 says, when Kent is doing temperatures, I'm positive he doesn't care about the scale you use. He'll just repeat a number. Okay. You know, that's probably pretty accurate. Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Yeah, that's a pretty good chance there. And how are we doing? I don't think we're going to get the AMA number. We still have 17 super chats to go and only 38 minutes to get them in. Looks like my Christmas Day is going to be stream free. I tried to crack my knuckles by going backwards, but like I only have like 4 of them total, and my arms don't reach that way, so I failed. I'm sorry. This is why I should have put on my human suit, because my human suit could crack its knuckles that way. But the real me, with its stupid dino arms, not so much. Look, I admit it, my dinosaur arms are kind of silly. Now, my dinosaur teeth and feet and tail, pretty badass. Arms, not so great.
You know, big deal, and who cares, right? That cold, it doesn't matter.
Kent, you seem to care because you're trying to make some point about how you were flash freezing mammoths. Sealoof says, Dapper Dinosaur is an autodidactic linguistics enthusiast and a polyglot. Okay, I am an autodidactic linguistic enthusiast. I reject the label polyglot. I don't think it's well defined. I think a large number of so-called polyglots online are mostly fakers. And, like, here's the thing, right? I watch some polyglot content. And occasionally, I've watched polyglot content where they were speaking a language I'm familiar with. And one of the things that becomes very obvious very quickly is that the amount of language that they learned to do that polyglot video, where they're speaking whatever language, is not actually all that much. It's mostly just a few memorized phrases. They're very basic about like how much you like food, or where is, or how much is, whatever, like if you're paying. And it's the kind of thing you could probably prep for in a week, even if you're not great at languages. So, in addition to the fact that polyglot is not well defined, I don't really want to associate myself with the online polyglot community because I think a large portion of them are mostly just, I don't want to say scamming, but it's mostly just a gimmick. I'll say that. It's a gimmick. Because are they speaking that language? Yeah, okay, sure. But do they actually speak it in any meaningful way beyond just spending a couple weeks at most, like learning set phrases? No, not really. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $2 says, is it just the number of super chats or the value? So it has to be of the teal value or higher, right? So the light blue $2 super chats don't work. The teal ones that are like $5 or $4.99 US or higher, those count. If they're yellow at like, I think it's like $9.99 US, that also counts. So yeah. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $2 says, because I can drop a lot of low value super chats. Well, if they're too low value, then it won't count because it does have to be the teal ones. All right.
The movie or the book by Jack London, To Build a Fire, where he's out there freezing to death, and he said you can tell how cold it is if you spit and it freezes on. As soon as it hits, it freezes. It's about 50 below. And he was spitting and it was freezing in the air before it hit the ground.
Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, okay, 1. Thank you very much. You want that AMA, don't you?
So it has to be 75 below, somewhere around there. But if you spit and it freezes when it hits the ground, it's time to move south. That's my thinking on the.
Or you could be at the South Pole like you were just talking about, Kent, in which case it gets worse. How about you say you move closer to the equator? I'm taking a drink for Kent not knowing which direction to go to get warmer if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says 2. I like how you spelled out TWO and put a period. That is very formal. I appreciate that. As a dinosaur who appreciates a certain level of formality, I do appreciate that, good sir. Or madam. I'm just assuming sir because Mark is a very masculine name, but I might be wrong. Alright, here we go.
On the situation. All right. Anyway, the
Triceratops says you should just click harder. Says, why doesn't he move into the sun? I wish he would. But it turns out it actually takes way more delta V to get something to contact the sun than it does to just get it to leave the solar system entirely. So anytime you're like, oh, we should shoot that guy into the sun, like, no, just shoot him out of the solar system. It's way cheaper. And it's just as good. So, just a fun little physics fact there. It takes less delta V, aka less fuel, to leave the solar system entirely than it does to actually shoot something into the sun. Now, sure, you could arrange a whole bunch of gravity assists and get it into the sun essentially for free.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a pain in the ass.
frozen mammoths, if it takes 150 to 300 below zero,
Which it doesn't, but okay.
I have to explain, since it never gets that cold on Earth, something had to happen. So
Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says androgynous/gender fluid, so either or. Alright, well then, I will just try to remember not to worry about it for you. I, however, am probably not forming the most detailed short-term memories, which will then mean I do not form very good long-term memories from this. So, don't count on me remembering. Just gonna put that out there. Because I have already had... I think I'm coming up on like my 6th shot worth of tequila.
Mas tequila.
Yes. Yes. In Klingon, you might even say Choi tequila. Good look. Go look at what Choi means in Klingon. Kent Bohi. What's up?
Nice. Klingon.
Yeah, Klingon. Klingon Horvijak. Kent Bohemian Devonian Denisovan Halstead for $1.99 says, this sun or all sun? So it's going to depend on where you are. If you're in like a different star system, like if you're really close to the star itself, like a Mercury type orbit, it might be cheaper to drop into the sun than to leave the solar system. But if you're launching something from Earth in this solar system right now, it is cheaper in terms of fuel cost to go for a direct exit of the solar system than for a direct contact of the sun. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, how many more do I need to drop? First, let me update the counter, and then I will find out. So, you would have to drop, to do this by yourself, 13 more in the course of the next 31 minutes and 12 seconds. And then Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, can I get a little help here? I can type and click only so fast. And then Pillpunk, half dog, half canine, for $5 says, this will be all I've got in the budget this week, but here's hoping we get an AMA. I'm tired of learning a second language 4 to 5 times and never get far. Oh, that does suck. And the thing is, like, I don't know what advice to give about that. Besides, if you don't have an immersion option, it's just motivation. And the thing is, there's no magic for motivation. And if you're someone who can self-motivate or even do things without sufficient motivation, then that's great. It's going to be great for you. But ultimately, like, sure, there are tricks and tips and whatnot, and, you know, like getting reading material in your source language helps, and there's all sorts of things that little things that can help. But fundamentally, if you're not going to put in enough time, and it's just not going to happen. And it's not because you're bad or anything. It's not easy. Right? Learning the language is tough and it takes work. I fully believe anyone can do it. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, anyone can do it in just a week. It's super easy. There's just a few one weird trick. No, there's not. There's not one weird trick. Let's see. Meta Geeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, not to mess up the counting, but 4 times open parenthesis 1 minus 1/3 plus 1/5 plus 1/7 plus 1/9 dash ellipsis close parenthesis Mothra, Ghidorah, Godzilla, and a Carmen. So I will take a drink, and I am not going to try to sum up that infinite series because does it sum to 1.5, or I guess it's minus? Does it sum to 2? Does it sum to 2? I'm just guessing. If it sums to 2, let me know. Keller Atelian for $5 says, for the AMA, AIG is a bag of dicks emoji. We'll take a drink for that. Josh McGee says, Uno Mosh? Do you mean Uno Mas? I'm not familiar with mosh as a Spanish word. Then Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, it's not the money. I have plenty right now. Godzilla. I do appreciate that. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, by the way, how is the pupper doing? Bent, how is the pupper doing? Is she nearby?
Yeah, she's napping on the chair next to me.
Aww.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Silu for 56 says, Godzilla, I want to reach 404, but I've got hospital and vet bills coming up in the next 3 months, so this is my last super chat for a while. That's very, very understandable. Thank you so much. And then Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith for $5 says, and did Ben get his pizza, Godzilla? He did for the last stream. We'll take a drink for the Godzilla. And for the other Godzilla. But let people know what kind of pizza you got.
I got a personal pan pizza with pepperoni and mushrooms on it, and it was very good.
Nice. There was also some cheesy pepperoni stuffed bread.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was also good.
All right. So I have updated the count. We were at 134%, which means, Bent, we have surpassed where we were last Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we're only 4 away from you guys making me come back tomorrow to do an AMA.
That would be really cool.
I picked 1 hour because I thought you guys wouldn't do it. Little did I know. Mark right-handed Sith Smith for $5 says Godzilla pelagic tunicate, gross. AIG's a bag of dicks, pelagic tunicate, gross. And Mothra. And then Regios for $5 says, not sure what's going on, got here late. Thank you very much. What's going on is we're mostly just reading super chats, and every once in a while we get a break long enough to talk about whatever nonsense Kent Hopen's is talking about. And because you guys met a super chat goal last time, I have managed to convince Bent to wear a Santa hat by purchasing a Santa hat and then saying, "Hey Bent, you want to wear a Santa hat next week?" So it was very hard to convince him. He was,
And I said, okay.
yeah, it was a lot of work. I had to really try. Mark right-handed Sith Smith for $5 says, how many more Godzilla? Well, it turns out it's actually 0 because after that was 19. And then Joshua Geese for $5 says, with the 20th, reference to that movie with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson where they are doing shots and other drinking. Thank you. Let's update this. You guys might make it so that I have to wear a tutu instead of Bent. Because that's a thing, right? It's up there. Dapper tutu? That means that right now, Bent has 2 tutus that he owes us. If that gets to Dapper tutu, he only has 1, and I have 1. And I have to get into my stupid human suit, because the tutu doesn't fit my dinosaur. Me. The real me. It doesn't fit.
No?
No. I mean, it would be shredded. Are you kidding me?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Vinny Richenko says, Dapper, first dinosaur with only alkali's veins. All right. So after this, I'm going to have to come up with a thumbnail for an AMA. And I'll schedule it. And it'll be sometime around like midday, like maybe early afternoon. And yeah, if you want to come and ask me questions, it'll be at least an hour. And basically, if there's enough questions to keep going, I'll go a little long. But I do have plans sometime later on that day, so I can't go forever. Oh, and here's another $5. Mike right-handed Sith Smith for $5 says, how much for Dapper Tutu? With a Godzilla emoji. We'll take a drink for that. All right, so Dapper Tutu hits at 200%. And right now, 200% is 820 in super chats and gifted memberships, which is a lot. But, I mean, you guys might hit it. We're not that far off. We're well past 100%. So. And then Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, if it sums to pi divided by 4, so 4 times the series is pi, it's the Maclorian series expansion for pi with a pi emoji. I did not know that. That is actually really cool. I was definitely wrong as to what it summed to, but then again, I was only guessing. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to lay out all the different facts that I think need to be explained, and then give you my theory, which I think will explain why I've selected this theory to explain, try to explain all of these things. I call it the Hoven theory, so nobody else gets blamed for it, in case I'm wrong.
He means credit, but whatever.
Right? And I probably am wrong on some things, but
You know what, Kent? That is the most accurate thing I've ever heard you say. You probably are wrong on some things. Good job, buddy. He has never been more self-aware than when he said that.
I was strongly influenced as a young Christian by a video that I saw. Actually, it was just a film strip with a tape recording that goes with it by Don Patton.
Mark right-handed Sith Smith for $50 says, for the tutu and maybe get Bent another pizza? You know what? If we get to 200%, I will give Bent 2 free pizzas or just way fancier Chinese food. I don't know what that means, actually, now that I think about it. So it'll just be 2 pizzas, basically. And if he wants to turn one of the pizzas into Chinese food, he can do that. Because immediately after I said that, I was like, I have no effing clue what the heck that could possibly mean.
We're going to China.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to go to Hong Kong again. Because I've been to Hong Kong before. I really liked it. We're going to go to the dim sum place at the top of City Hall in Hong Kong. We're going to get all you can eat. No, we're not going to do any of that. least I'm not. But you can go to Hong Kong if you want to.
I've been there twice. I'll go again.
Roshan Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $1.99 says you can't super chat more than $499 in a week. Is that true? Is that like a thing? Interesting. I don't know if that's true. I mean, it doesn't seem impossible. All right, here we go.
The biblical flood and the ice epic. That's where I got the beginning of this idea. I said, wow, that makes sense. And I've read lots of books by Henry Morris and all these guys, and I really admire their work. And I've tried...
Kent, that's because you're incapable of fact-checking. You know that, right?
To put together what I think is a coherent theory, and I really like Walt Brown's, even though he disagrees with me on a couple things. I think his hydroplate theory is very logical, reasonable, well laid out.
Yeah, as long as you ignore the physics, right? If you ignore physics and all of science, then Walt Brown's hydroplate theory is entirely reasonable. Kent, you know what? I'm just gonna toast to that to Kent, the craziest man I think I've ever encountered. Okay, that's not true. It might be Mr. Batman. Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith just gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. That puts us at 65 today. Thank you so much. Wow. Let's take some drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's 6. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a brain freezy kind of thing going on here. Hold on a second. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Oh. Roshan of Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, it's true. I've tested it twice during better days. $4.99 max a week across all channels. Interesting. I had never heard that before. I've never come even close to that because I can't afford it, honestly. I mean, I could afford it in the sense that if I did it right now, I wouldn't be left with literally no money to pay bills or anything. But like, that's not something I can. It's not in the budget anywhere close to that. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine, who's been a member for 18 months, says, I guess it is the season of giving AIG is a bag of dicks. And that is, both of those things are true. Take a drink. Kent Bohemian Devonian Denisovan Holstead for $1.99 says, damn, the whales are breaching today. Oh, you are not wrong. You are not wrong. So I gotta say, traditionally, December is a rough month for creators, right? But I want to say thank you for not only helping me and Bent out immensely right now, because it really is, it's a tough time with the dog, with the bills. December's just never easy generally. But not only this year, but even last year, when I had that false community guideline strike, you guys really stepped up to the plate to help us out, both me and Bent. And I can't imagine what I've done to deserve having an audience this amazing. And I can think of a whole lot of things I've done to deserve not having it. Most of them I did in the Navy. By being in the Navy, basically. So I really do appreciate it. And also, we're at $335 on the GoFundMe, which is 22%. So thank you so much. Our most recent donation was 35 minutes ago from Anonymous for $25. And hey, if you hit the $4.99 Super Chat maximum, but you still want to help out with the Carmen vet bills, you can send $1,000 to the GoFundMe if you want to. I won't stop you, I promise. But only do that if you can afford it. Because that's the other thing, right? If this is going to put you or your family in jeopardy, please don't help that money. Vadim Rychenko says, also, is Vishanti's situation improving? So, I don't want to overspeak for what Vishanti will allow me to say. However, I will say she is continuing her job hunt. She has had some good news on that front, but not, as far as I know, a firm offer. That being said, the amazing support you gave her on her fundraiser, completely funding it in less than 3 days, has made it so that she is at least secure for a good, I believe, 60-ish days. So, yeah. And look, she knows that we're not gonna. I'm specifically not gonna let her be homeless. So, Vishanti, I think, will at least survive. And yeah, Lesbiandra for 26 says, God Yule, Dapper and Ben. Thank you. God Yule to you too. With a Godzilla, so we'll take a drink. If you have further, more detailed questions for Vishanti, please ask her. I don't want to speak on her behalf about things that I either don't know or have not received permission to talk about. So, Carrie Bronson for $20 says, I have a 43-month membership milestone free chat, but you need the money. Here you go. You're worth every penny and then some. Enjoy the holiday. Please, as a favor for me, if for no other reason. Carrie, I really appreciate it. I don't know what to say. I still maintain I have the absolute best audience on YouTube. It doesn't mean other audiences are bad, but you guys are the best. And I don't know what I did to attract such an awesome audience. Roshina Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, I do not know if the $4.99 per week limit includes or applied to gift memberships. Well, we'll just have to test it. So, if any of you happen to be millionaires or billionaires, test that with memberships. See if you can give me 300 memberships. I mean, I was going to say I'm kidding, but if you're actually a billionaire, please do that. You can afford it. I was going to say, don't give me that much, but if you're an actual billionaire, yeah, give me that much. I don't care. Go for it. But if you're not, if you actually can't afford them, please don't. Philipunk Half Dog Half Canine for $5 says, modeling the values of honesty, integrity, and fairness is generally a pretty good method of attracting an audience that values those things. You guys are going to make me cry. Annoyed at Fraudulent Grifters Gladstone for $10 with their 10th super chat. Thank you very much. Says $10 for my 10th super chat. Drink up. You know what? I will drink up, even though it's not a drink trigger. Here we go. There's a drink trigger there. And then Mark Right-Handed Sith Smith gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So, okay, let me update this. Let me make sure I get this right so that we have the right numbers on the tracker. There we go. We're at 190% bent.
That's really cool.
Yeah. You guys have been amazing. All right, here we go. 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. So I have started eating tequila-soaked berries because I'm out of the liquid part of my drink. But there's some berries in here who have been soaking the tequila for a very long time, and let me promise you, they are full of booze. All right, here we go. We're going to get a little bit more Kent in, then we're going to take a quick break again. So here we go.
He doesn't explain a couple things like the giant insects, which I think, you have to have a canopy. I don't see another way to get giant insects. A lot of people have influenced this. John Morris, Henry Moore, Steve Austin.
Okay, first, Kent. The giant insects are just explained by higher oxygen concentrations. You don't need a giant canopy. You don't... Let me be very clear here. Kent believes in a physically impossible ice canopy that would immediately crash to Earth if it existed. And he believes that because it would increase the partial pressure of oxygen, allowing insects to better oxygenate their bodies, allowing them to grow larger, like we see in like Carboniferous / Pennsylvanian or whatever arthropods. Okay, but just a higher overall oxygen content in the air will do that too. We have amber from that time with little air pockets, and we know it's the higher concentration of oxygen. So we don't need a canopy, especially not one that's physically impossible, Kent. So, okay.
And Don Patton, Walt Brown, Carl Baugh, and it's a
Carl Baugh is one of the very few creationists who I would say is probably more off the walls bonkers than Kent. But because he is less likely to run afoul of, Johnny Law, he's got a better following and has had a better life overall than Kent Hovind. Fade to Gray, don't build a tower of bubble for $10 says, what is that emoji in the middle there? I don't even recognize that. So it's a dapper emoji and then an emoji I don't even recognize. Ben, do you know what that emoji is?
No, I can't tell what that is.
Huh. But then there's a Godzilla. AIG is a bag of dicks. Sessile Tunicate, the proper patriotic, hard-working, God-fearing Tunicate. Thank you very much. And then there's a drink emoji. So we will take a drink, and I will eat a berry. And then we will update. Okay. Casual Sleeping Dragon says, have you considered Jesus magic? To be fair, no.
It's a shame, but many creationists haven't learned to eat the meat and spit out the bones. You can glean something from everybody. Okay, I learned things from Hugh Ross.
Kent Bohemian Devonian Denishoven Halstead for $4.99 says, Kent, that amount of fresh water could bring about world peace. Please help us get to it. I don't know if it would help us bring about world peace fully, but it would be a huge relief to the resource burden of the world to get that much fresh water. An unbelievable boon to humanity to get a vapor an ice canopy level of fresh water.
He's got some amazing articles. No, I disagree with him on just about everything, but there's some things I agree.
Vladimir says, what's the metaphor with bones? Okay, so the idea is that Kent is saying you should take, if someone has good points and bad points, you shouldn't simply reject everything they say because of the bad points. Instead, you should be able to take in the good points, the meat, and spit out the bones, the bad point. Just like if you're eating a hunk of chicken, right? And oh no, I hit a bone. What do? Do you just stop eating the chicken overall? No, you take out the bone and okay. So that is the analogy he is going with. But you know what? We only got 4 minutes till the top of the hour. I think it is time to take a quick break, especially since apparently my computer just keeps running out of memory and I don't know why. Maybe I just need a new computer. Yeah, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back after I do things like get more tequila. Before we go, actually, we're going to get to the Maple 5 gift memberships after we get back. So, because then I'll actually have a drink to drink the 5 drinks for. Because if I do it now, what am I going to do? Just eat a bunch of berries? That's not as much fun. All right, so we'll be back in just a little bit. Please enjoy this. We're going to rerun the commercial, I think, for the Star Trek Adventures, and then we're going to go back to the Beethoven musical stylings. So we will be right back in just a little bit. Next time on Star Trek Lexington.
Captain's Log, Stardate 6652.1. The Lexington has been ordered by Admiral Stoker to the planet Taurus 2 in the Murasaki 312 cluster. The planet was first surveyed a year and a half ago by the USS Enterprise, which nearly resulted in the death of the whole landing party, led by Commander Spock. The Admiral believes that the ionic storms the planet is known for may be connected to potential Tillicol ruins under the surface, and we are tasked with investigating. We'll have to visit the planet covertly, because the natives are still in their Stone Age, and they're also known to be aggressive and stand about 3 meters tall. So not only is the Prime Directive a concern, but they pose a significant physical threat to any landing party personnel. I'm organizing a landing party, and I'm considering issuing phaser rifles set to stun, but I'll consult with Mr. Croc about that.
The crew will find the Torians are much changed, which may be a rare blessing. However, contradictory sensory readings and ion storms will strand the landing party. Can they navigate reality-breaking energies, dangerous environments, and natives still protected by the Prime Directive to get back home? Was the Murasaki 312 Nebula a former Tillicol stronghold, as Admiral Stoker suspects? Find out next time on Star Trek Lexington, only on the Top Hats Off channel. Okay, we are back, and during the break, y'all gave enough that Dapper Tutu is now a thing. So, Bent, I owe you 2 takeout meals, and you don't owe 2 tutus. I owe 1 and you owe 1. So,
Okay.
there we go. Let's read what we missed while we were gone. Let's see. Mapleson gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, so we will take 5 drinks for that. 1. Oh, this needs to be stirred more. Give me a second here. That was that was tequila. Okay. Whew, 2. Okay, that's a lot better. 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Dragon Spartan Official gave a 2 beaver buck super chat with no message. Mark, right-handed Sith Smith, gave a $50 super chat that says, Carp has good meat, but I don't eat it because of the bones. With a Godzilla. That's good. That's fair. Mm. You know what that reminded me of, though?
What's that?
Last time I was in Alabama, it wasn't carp, it was catfish. And I ate so much damn fried catfish and hush puppies. And fried okra. I ate that like every single day when I was in Alabama.
That sounds so good.
That's when I was working. I was doing a job at the United Launch Authority or whatever, ULA rocket assembly location, and I was like, "Hey, you want to go touch a rocket that's going to go into space?" I was like, "Yes, come here." And so then I went and did that, and it was extremely cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was great food and a pretty cool location to work at. Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 43 months, I am slurring, yes, it is happening, who is at the amniote level, says, if we dug a hole of Labab and forced the world into one unified language, what do you think it would sound like? Ooh, that is a good question. So, it would probably have the most cross-linguistically common sounds. So it would all be plumonic, so no adjectives, no clicks, nothing like that. Let's see, it'll probably only have 3 vowels, e, and oo. Maybe probably oo. It would have. It probably wouldn't have phonemic voicing. So you would have to have a pretty large range of probably sibilants and stops. So my guess is that it would basically cover pretty much all of the stops and sibilants and nasals from like bilabial down to like velar, without phonemic voice, and also aspiration would probably be non-phonemic. So it would probably be a pretty basic phonology, and it would probably be well suited to a syllabary. So that would be my guess. If we had to do one unified language, it was actually going to be an amalgam of all the languages, is it would simplify down to that very basic phonology right there. So, and it would probably have a very simple phonotactics. Syllables would probably have to just be consonant syllable or consonant syllable consonant. With probably some pretty strict phonotactic rules that govern consonant to consonant contact across syllabic boundaries. Like, you probably couldn't have syllables where one ends in one point of articulation and the next one starts up in a different point of articulation within the same word, which would then simplify clusters down a whole lot. So, yeah, that's my guess. Bent, any thoughts?
Yeah, you're not a linguist.
That's correct. I am not a linguist.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know why anyone would think
If
that
you
I'm a
say
linguist.
so.
I don't get it. What do I ever say that's actually all that complicated or insightful in terms of linguistics?
Gee, I wonder.
Yeah, look, guys, it makes no sense to me. I'm going to double check on the fundraiser though before we get back to Kent, and we have not had any new donations there. Do remember, if what your primary goal is to just help out with the vet bill, that is the most cost-effective way to do it, but it doesn't get tracked as closely here. So, I get it. All right, here we go.
I've learned things from Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
You can eat the meat and spit out the bones. I mean, it's not that complicated. You can learn something from every.
I honestly kind of want to know what he thinks he's learned from Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm actually a little bit curious about that because the Jehovah's Witnesses have some they've got some takes on the Bible. Let's just say that.
Everybody. So, some people, if they don't like one thing about one person, they blackball them from then on. You're no good. Nothing good can come out of you. Like they said about Jesus, can anything good come out of Nazareth?
I mean, hey Ken, I have a whole drink trigger for when you get good things, for when you get things right. So I'm willing to give you that benefit.
My theory is slightly different from any other that I've seen. That combines aspects of many other people's theories.
By the way, I'm not getting into the fact that Kent has no theory whatsoever, and he's misusing the word theory because he fundamentally doesn't know what science is. We all know.
I must bear the responsibility if it's wrong. I'm going to review some things about science, or maybe it'll just be teaching the first time if you never knew it. And then we're going to try to explain some things, like fish fossils found in diatomaceous earth by the trillions. I've got a block which I'll show you later when we get to that. It has probably 30 fish fossils in 1 square foot.
Oh, okay.
What happened? This is a piece
fish
of
died?
Shale. When they drill down into this shale, oftentimes they find oil-bearing shale.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see in the sides of this, oil was dripping out in a few places, right here. And you can see a clear impression of a fish that has been pressed and turned into oil.
Why does he think this is extraordinary?
Who knows?
Okay.
Pass that around. Be careful. We'll try not to touch the fish part so it doesn't wipe the oil off. There's the fish. He turned into oil by the pressure.
Wait. Did Kent just say the fish turned into oil because of the pressure?
That's what he said exactly, word for word. Yes.
But there's also a fossil of the fish.
Don't worry about that minor detail.
I have to take a drink. Hey, Kent, have you... Okay, I know Kent isn't going to watch this, and if he does, he's going to do a whack an atheist, even though there's no good reason for him to think I'm an atheist. Kent, have you ever, in your entire life, listened to yourself after you just said something? Like at all? I'm sorry. I just can't with Kent. What? I'm just gonna hit play.
What happened to this world?
Kent, shale is a fine grain sediment, which means it has to come out of the water column relatively slowly. So what happened is a bunch of plants, which are the main constituent of petroleum, died in a wetland. And remind me, Bent, do wetlands tend to have fish?
I don't know. We'll go with yes.
Okay, good, because they're wetlands. Which actually reminds me, the last time I was in South Carolina visiting my brother, my dad was there. And for some reason, he got it into his brain that I could just identify every possible bit of wildlife from like a fraction of a second glance. And so like a ripple would appear on a pond and be like, what fish was that? And I'm just thinking like, I have no fucking clue. But then I would just make something up. I was like, oh, that's an eastern stickleback grouper. You'd be like, oh, cool. And then finally, the day before we all left, I was like, hey, Dad, I made up all those animals. They're not even real animals. It's like, what? Why? And I was like, okay, first, there's no way I could possibly identify all these animals in the way that you wanted me to. Second, remember that time you spent like 3 years trying to convince all of us kids that you and your friend could speak the language of the apes from the Tarzan comics? That's why. That's why.
Revenge.
Yup. And he was like, what? I was like, sorry, Dad. Oh, how the turntables. Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 43 months, who ended at the amniote level, says, if we dug a hole... oh, no, I already read that. Roshna, Polydactyl Jesus Keller, for $4.99 says, oils made from tiny microorganisms not fish. It is partially made from that. It is also bulk, large plants. So there is a lot of, like, trees. Because one of the things about oil is that it's primarily from the Carboniferous, because nothing that could eat lignin existed at the time, but large plants had evolved lignin as a structural protein. Baba Holly says, a dish best served cold. It's true. My dad would do crap like that all the time, so the fact that I would do it to him, I feel like he should have seen that coming, right? Like, come on, man. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $2 says, the eastern stickleback is a real fish, but not the eastern stickleback grouper. That is a fake fish, because there are no groupers in the ponds of South Carolina, because groupers are in fact ocean fish. I was careful to make sure I did not use real fish that actually existed, or birds for that matter. Yeah, that's why I put in grouper. All right, here we go.
Why do we find petrified clams and snails and seashells on top of Mount Everest?
Because the sediment between the Indian subcontinent and the Eurasian continent was lifted up as the Indian subcontinent slammed into the Eurasian plate, pushing up the Himalayas. So, you know, when ocean becomes land, things that lived in the ocean now end up with their remains on land. Now, a more interesting question, Kent, is how did the pink salt get there? Because, Bent, I think you have some pink salt.
I do.
You know what makes it pink?
It's the fossilized algae, I think.
It is. And how do you get a huge deposit of salt with fossilized oceanic algae?
There would be no way of knowing.
Well, it turns out that you can get it by having the ocean water slowly evaporate.
Ocean there.
Yeah. Now, remind me, under a worldwide flood, can you get large-scale oceanic evaporation under the floodwaters?
Probably not.
Yeah, no. Okay. So, if you had to guess, would you say that the Himalayas provide positive or negative evidence for a worldwide flood?
I would say it does not support a worldwide flood.
Do you think you could say that it would help us reject that hypothesis?
Sure, why not?
I mean, I would say that. Video Jenkins says, you need a lot of salt? Just play MOBA. Goodness. Look, the person I know who is the best at MOBAs is Chesh, and I've watched her play League of Legends, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't need that in my life. I'm happy that she enjoys it. She should keep enjoying it, but I need more chill. I need more relaxation in my life. In the words of multiple movie and protagonists, I'm too old for that shit.
Something strange happened on this world, okay?
You haven't provided a single shred of evidence for that, Ken.
The inverse square law is the first thing I want to explain to you.
I'm just wondering how Kent is going to screw up the inverse square law. Okay, Kent. Give us the inverse square law according to Kent. Except that lady novelist Kent's tender touch a chicken's tail has been a member for 5 months at the amniote level and says, oh, how the turntables, That sentence to get away from you. Are things wibbly wobbly timey wimey from tequila? No, that was an Office reference. That was a reference to the show The Office. And back me up on that.
It's true.
It's true.
He says, well, how the turntables, and then it goes to commercial break.
Mm-hmm. That is a reference to Michael Scott. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm coming up on, like, shot 7 or something worth of tequila, so, like, I'm uh, I'm fairly well sloshed, Jeff, if you will. But that was not just a result of that. That was a reference to The Office, conscious, intentional reference to The Office. Ren, tax bills are just lines on paper. Oh no! Oh, that's so great. Who's been a member for 11 months and is at the tetrapod level says, "I'm late, but happy holidays and love to the pup." Thank you so much. Look, so far you guys have been absurdly generous. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. And I think I'm sure Bent shares that sentiment.
Absolutely, I do. Every donation just means the world to me. I really appreciate it.
All right, here we go.
If two bodies are attracted to each other, like say the Earth and the Moon, they're pulling on each other with their gravity. The more massive a planet is, the stronger its gravity is. You can
True. We'll take a drink, Kent.
actually get two huge steel balls and park them next to each other, and they each have their own gravity, and they'll pull each other pull toward each other.
I mean, if you're in an exceptionally low friction environment, sure, but usually we use lead, and I think he's trying to describe like the well, what's the experiment with the lead balls and the torsion wire? Cavendish. I think what he's trying to describe is the Cavendish experiment, which uses lead or sometimes gold because of their heavy mass. But like, he's not wrong. Roshna Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, "Is wanting to watch Dapper eat on camera in his human suit while wearing a tutu a fetish?" You know what? That's a question you're gonna have to answer for yourself. That is, I'm not about to become a mukbang streamer. I will say that. But I'll tell you what. If we get to 500%, I will eat Chinese food during the AMA on camera. You guys have 40 minutes or so to get this from 216% to 500%. I'll give you that. And if I can't get the Chinese food in time, I will schedule a second AMA in which I do eat Chinese food. Only if you get this to 500%, which is a lot. So, yeah. Anoid at Fraudulent Grifters Gladstone for $5 says, "Glad you skipped the eggnog this time, Godzilla." I mean, I do still have eggnog in the refrigerator. But we'll take a drink for it. Then for $4.99, Roach and Polydactyl Jesus Keller says, "Oh, this is the Kent doesn't understand the roach limit portion of the presentation." Oh, I hope it is. I really do. That would be so much. So great. Ah, the roach limit.
And you can hook up bars on there and hook a spring to it and tell how hard it's pulling.
Yeah, it's the Cavendish experiment. Okay, he is going for the Cavendish experiment. Great.
And they can check the force of gravity between two giant steel balls or two big lead balls. They have not a magnetic attraction.
Has to do with size.
Gravity has to do with mass, not size.
You know what? That's true. That's a good correction against Eric from Kent. Fair play, Kent. We'll take a drink. You are right. It's mass, not size. That's why things like neutron stars and black holes exist, right? Because it's about size, it's about mass, not just like the volume. That's why a neutron star can be like the size of Manhattan and have the mass of the Earth. Or why a black hole can be essentially of zero size and have the mass of the sun. Or more. Yep, Kent's right.
You can have this room full of marshmallows is not as massive as this room full of lead.
Yeah.
Okay. Your mass does not change. If you go out in space, you still have the same mass. Your weight changes. You can be totally weightless, but if somebody came up and pushed you, it would be exactly the same as pushing on Earth in a frictionless environment.
I'm impressed. This is actually like real physics stuff that Kent has given us here. Fair play, Kent. I'll take another drink. I mean, good job. I'm not used to Kent being this right about things. Hey, you know what? Credit where it's due. That's one of the things I never want to lose, is my ability to give credit to morons when they get things right.
You know, a 200-pound tackle hitting a 150-pound end, you know, the 200-pound tackle has more mass, and so he will win in the collision. A semi hitting a Volkswagen in space would do the same as it does on Earth.
Yeah, more or less.
Smash the Volkswagen. Right. So the mass doesn't change, but the weight does, okay? Inverse square law says if the distance between two attracting bodies is cut in half, let's look at the moon is about 250,000 miles away. If we brought the moon back into 1/2 that distance, 1/8 of a million miles, gravity's 4 times stronger.
Okay, that's true, but I'm wondering why the graphic went with 1/3 to 9 times, which is also true. It's just a different ratio, and I'm a little confused as to why he doesn't have that consistent. But here's my guess. I don't think he's doing the editing, and I think he forgot what was on his slide. And so the editor just had to put in the appropriate slide. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't think that's on Kent. I'm pretty sure he's not the editor. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. I'm just going to point out it's a little odd that he's using half the distance, quadruple the strength, versus cut the distance to 1/3 and non-nuple the strength. Is that it? Is it non-nuple? Bent? As a native English speaker?
Know.
You're a native English speaker.
I've never heard that word or thought of its definition before.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get a different English speaker. Good Shakespeare.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay, I'm gonna call him up. Boop, 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 boop. Hey Shakespeare, you wanna take over for Kent with Bent? Oh, you're dead? Thousands of miles away? So no? Okay. Well, you enjoy that. Yep. Love you too.
The pull between those two planets is 4 times stronger. My dad was electrical engineer at Caterpillar Tractor Company. He had to design the lighting for factories. And the inverse square law applies with lights. If I measured how much light is on my hand from, you know, how many candles.
By the way, if you want to hear someone dispute the inverse square law regarding light, check out my debate with Flat Earth Aussie Jesus / Iron Horse, where he disputed the inverse square law in terms of the brightness of light. It sure was a thing that happened.
Power, which is how they measure, is equivalent to.
Oh, Baba Ali says yes, Dapper Dinosaur, non-upple. Okay, good. I was right. I know words. Too drunk for this.
500 candles. If I move that light in to half the distance, I'd have 2,000 candle power.
Okay.
Inverse square law says if the force of attraction between two objects is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I brought the moon back to 1/3 the distance, you'd inverse it, flip it over, and square it.
Okay.
9 times the gravitational pull.
Yes.
Inverse square law applies when you're dealing with gravity, with light, with magnetism, same thing. How strong is the magnet?
No, it does not apply to magnetism. I'm taking a drink. And the thing is, you can just easily measure this, right? Like, have you ever had 2 like neodymium magnets bent?
Yes.
Okay. Do they pull apart at the inverse square law with like the force, or is it greater than that? Because it is, in fact, they fall off much faster than that.
Okay.
Yeah. Magnetism does not follow the inverse square law. In fact, I believe it actually follows the inverse cube law. So no, Kent. No. Does not apply to magnetism.
It's inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two magnets, and it works with girls.
Ha! It's a joke that didn't land.
When the distance is halved, the force of attraction is quadrupled. Now, many fellows have not caught on to this until it is
He's
too
still
late.
going down on the joke.
See, I travel a lot. I've been home 7 Sundays, I think, now in 9 years. So when you come home after a trip and you get 10 feet away from Your wife is like, hello, dear, how are you? You know, when you half the distance, it's 4 times the attraction.
Hey, Bent,
Mm-hmm.
is that Kent's wife?
It may have been at one point.
What's he on now? Wife 4?
I lost count.
Pretty sure it's wife 4. Hey, Kent, you know what happens when you send your wife to prison because she followed your commands? Turns out that force of attraction goes down way more than just the inverse square law would lead you to believe. Just putting it out there. And I'm also going to say that Kent's wife is a very trad wife type person who refuses to speak ill of her husband. And when she was asked point blank whether or not Kent had physically abused her, she opted not to answer. Now, that is not the same thing as saying, no, he did not. However, it is extremely unlikely that she would say that he did, even if he did. And if he didn't, I would expect a trad wife to answer, no, he absolutely didn't. So, I can't say this for sure. I don't know it to be true. But I think it is significantly more likely than not that Kent beat Joe Hovind, this woman on screen. And the thing is, look, Kent with Bent is primarily a good fun time. But when it comes up to things like this, I don't want to gloss over it. Kent Hovind is an abusive piece of shit. Right? And sure, we laugh at him because he says stupid things. But I also want to make clear, this is a serious matter. He has abused, almost certainly, his wives. We know he's abused Cindy. He's been convicted of it. He's almost certainly abused Joe. I very much expect that he's abusing his current wife. Mary Toko may have been married to him for a short enough time that she didn't get physically abused. There are reports from eyewitnesses at Dinosaur Adventureland of him physically abusing children. He has, according to reports from Dinosaur Adventureland, facilitated the SA of children. And so one of the things I don't want us to forget while we're doing this mostly lighthearted show is that Kent Hovind is one of the worst people that you can imagine. He does not care about other people. He doesn't care about their well-being. He doesn't even care about their lives. So if you're a creationist or a Christian of any kind who is thinking that maybe Kent Hovind is a guy you should help out, maybe volunteer for, maybe go live on a Dinosaur Adventureland, I want to strongly caution you to not do that. It is a dangerous and potentially deadly thing for you to do. Don't go to Dinosaur Adventureland. Don't live there. Don't volunteer for Kent. If you want to start up your own creationist ministry, go for it. If you want to work for one of the other big creationist ministries that do not have a history of abusing women and children, go for it. But do not go volunteer at Dinosaur Adventureland. In fact, I would encourage you to not even visit. But, you do you.
When you half it again, it's too late. The force of attraction overpowers all resistance at this proximity.
I don't know about you guys, but just a close-up of lips, not my thing. But hey, maybe it's Kent's.
So, the secret is stay about 10 feet away and solve most of your problems.
Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaver Buck says, let's not forget he bragged about beating Eric. Yeah, there is that too, right? Okay. Some of this is probably the tequila. But I really want to say, look, and feel free to clip this. If you're a Christian creationist, I don't care that much, honestly, if you personally are a Christian creationist. But please, look into Kent's past, his history with abuse, and do not go to Dinosaur Adventureland as part of your attempt at helping out Christianity or Jesus or whatever. There are much less abusive places you can go. Especially don't move there. Especially not if you have kids like Matt Powell did. And you know what? Props to Matt Powell for moving out. What I think what happened is he found out that it was just a cult with an abusive cult leader. Because you know what? It is extremely rare that I'm going to ever give praise to Matt Powell. But I personally think he realized what the hell was going on at Dinosaur Adventureland, and he got out, not just for his sake, but for his family's sake. And good on him on that one. So, just don't support Kent. Support Ken Ham. He's less abusive. Go help out with ICR. They're less abusive. Just please, if you're a Christian creationist, do not volunteer or in other ways help out Kent Hovind. You can support young Earth creationism in other ways that will not pose a threat to your life or that of your family. It's not worth it. Kent Bohemian, Devonian, Dennis Hovind, Paulstead for 199 says, young Earth creationists deserve better than Kent. And yes, they absolutely do. Look, the average young Earth creationist is not someone I really have a problem with, right? The average young Earth creationist is just someone who goes to church every week, goes to a young Earth creationist church, and just believes what their pastor tells them, right? They're not lying about science because they don't know any better. They're just some guy or some gal. Please don't get abused by Kent Hovind. I'm asking this for your sake. That just got heavier than I wanted it to, so here's the play button.
Next thing you need to remember, or refresh your mind, or teach you new, is a spinning top behaves in a very particular manner. If a spinning top is hit by something, it will wobble, or a gyroscope will do the same thing.
That's because those are basically the same phenomenon, Kent. I'm going to take a quick drink.
It'll wobble, and it follows a surprisingly predictable pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we got a gyroscope spinning on the table, and we thump it with something, throw a rock at it. And it wobbles over 20 degrees and comes back up. Then wobbles over 15 degrees and comes back up, and wobbles over 10 degrees. As it wobbles, it'll follow a pattern. Now, it may be wobbling, tipping this way or this way or this way. But like the Earth, today is tipped over 23.5 degrees.
And pretty stable.
And the pole is wobbling just a very tiny little bit. Not much. The pole, the line between the North and South Pole, is always pointing toward the North Star. Let's say the North Star is up in that tree someplace, and the sun is right here.
Okay.
As we go around the sun, it always stays pointed to the North Star. That doesn't change. But our tilt in relation to the sun would change depending which side we're on.
Yeah. I guess that's true. Take a drink.
So if we're over here on this side, we have winter because we're tilted away from the sun. If we're over on this side, we have summer because we're tilted toward the sun. We get longer days. And if we're like we were yesterday, the first day of spring, March 21st, is the sun is directly perpendicular over the equator.
Holy shit, Kent. Make a point.
Everybody gets 12 hours of daylight.
Mm-hmm. Make a
North
point.
Pole gets 12 hours of daylight. South Pole gets 12 hours of daylight. Equator gets 12 hours. And 12 hours of darkness. Now, that only happens for a few seconds, and then we move on, and it starts to get,
You can't get 12 hours of sunlight for a few seconds. That doesn't make any sense. That's not how units work. Taking a drink. Jeez. Robert Templeton says, the North Star changes over the eons, Kenny boy. That is true. But it's on a cycle longer than Kent thinks the age of the universe is. So I can understand why he doesn't recognize the precession of the equinoxes.
Longer days down here and shorter days up here, or whatever. Actually, it's the other way around in the spring. We'd be on this side now, because as we travel around. So our days are going to be getting longer. So yesterday should have been 12.
Hey, our days are getting longer right now because we passed the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. Also, it's Christmas here. Merry Christmas. And if you think it's not Christmas here because I live in Arizona and it's only 8:37 on December 24th, well, as a reminder, the Christian liturgical day starts at sunset. And Bent, is Christmas a Christian holiday?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go.
12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness. Today's probably 12 hours and 2 minutes of daylight.
Well, I guess we know that this was near an equinox when you filmed it. Hooray!
Slowly gets longer. Now, it gets longer faster closer to the poles. At the peak of summer, on June 21st, the longest day of the year, they're going to have 24-hour daylight. We're not.
I mean, they're going to have it right at the tropic, or sorry, the Arctic Circle. You don't need to go to the pole to get 24-hour daylight on the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. You just need to be on the Arctic Circle, because that's literally what defines the Arctic Circle. The Arctic Circle is the southernmost latitude where you get 24 hours of sunlight on the summer solstice. That's how it's defined. And it is based on the axial tilt of the Earth. So, anywhere north of that, you will have had 24-hour sunlight before and after the summer solstice. So, that's literally how the Arctic Circle is defined. And if you didn't know that, now you do.
It gets this circle of 24 hours of daylight slowly grows out to the tropics and then goes back in. Shrink, this circle, the size of that circle of pure light or pure darkness, either one, same thing.
Okay, so he does know that. Fair enough.
Happens at the pole, at both poles, opposites.
Joran, 12 hours for a few seconds tax. Oh, that's so good. With their fifth super chat for $10, thank you so much, says, I've considered 1 week for my long run, doing 1/4 mile for every drink on this stream. I'm glad I didn't choose it this week, as now we're well over a marathon with the Ghidorah. We'll take a drink for the Ghidorah. Yeah. Tying things to the drink triggers on the show is dangerous. Like Darkwing Duck.
Nice.
Thank you.
Who cares? Okay. If a spinning top is struck by something, it'll wobble around and follow a predictable path.
Okay.
You can actually graph out, if you made a graph over time, okay, after 2 seconds it was leaning 5 degrees, after 4 seconds it was leaning 8 degrees. If you graph time...
Drink for Godzilla. Also, I just have to say, Kent might be the most long-winded speaker who follows the most circuitous routes to any point he makes that I have ever had the displeasure of hearing. It is crazy the degree to which he will beat around the bush, instead of beating the bush, which is what should have happened after the whole torture thing. Anyway, here's a play button.
Over angle, you would end up with a wavy line, and you can actually go back and look and determine when it was struck by the wavy line. Okay. George Dodwell, famous astronomer, gathered data from all over the world. There's a lot of evidence that the Earth has wobbled down through its history. From the
Yeah, but Kent, it wobbles on like a 10,000-year cycle. That's too long for you. What are you doing, Kent? Why would you introduce that? Oh, Kent. It wobbles on a cycle an order of magnitude longer than you think the Earth has been around. Oh.
Article here on the website, MSNBC, by Randolph Schmid, Associated Press. He said, scientists studying...
Okay, hold on. That message that came with the Godzilla was about Cien Años de Soledad on apparently Netflix. Has Cien Años de Soledad had been like a thing on Netflix for a while now and no one told me? Because that's not okay, guys. I like that book. And y'all didn't tell me that it was a thing on Netflix that I could watch? For shame. Cien Años de Soledad is I think, a pretty good book. I really enjoyed it when I read it. Anyway, Josh Verghese for $2 says, I am the terror that flaps in the night. Which again is excellent Darkwing Duck reference. I have not seen the reboot of Darkwing Duck that had David Tennant in it. Someday, I hope that David Tennant becomes David Homeowner. He's got it. He's got it in him. He can become David Homeowner. Level up, my guy.
Underwater volcanoes have found evidence the Earth may have wobbled like an out-of-balance ball 84 million years ago.
Yeah, so longer ago than you think the Earth has existed by several orders of magnitude. Cool, Kent.
Relocating the poles and shifting the location of Washington to the tropics. There are numerous different bits of evidence that tell us the Earth has wobbled. For instance, Stonehenge, the rocks piled up there in England, and the temple Amun-Ra, Napoleon's savants drew this picture in 1798.
I have no idea why Stonehenge showed up there. It just seems random.
I think it's been quite a bit more destroyed since then. Indicate that they built this thing so that the pillars would line up on June 21st with the sun. See, if you're really smart and you know exactly where the sun's going to be on June 21st, and you know that's the longest day of the year.
Wait, DuckTales got a reboot and not Darkwing Duck? It's disappointing. Okay. I'm less concerned with DuckTales than I am with Darkwing Duck. Even though there's crossover, because, you know, Gizmo Duck is in both. Fine. Maybe I should watch the DuckTales reboot. I do like DuckTales. Yeah, probably is. Keller Tellian for $2 says, God to Kent, get on with it. Yeah, he is the recipient of that message from Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Get on with it. Yeah, that's directed at Kent.
Or if you know exactly the angle the sun's going to be on the shortest day of the year, which is December 21st. It used to be December 25th.
Jasper Temple Farm the Mighty for €11 says Kent is the terror that yaps in the night. Oh, excellent. So as far as when the solstice was, so here's the thing, right? This is based on the Roman calendar, which has fluctuated, and they required like Roman consuls or emperors, depending on the time of the year, or sorry, the time in history, to declare when New Year started and whatnot. And it was a bit chaotic. And December 25th was at one point the traditional observance of the winter solstice. And by the time that became like, it at one point was traditional observance. And that's probably based on the fact that it was at some point the actual time of the winter solstice. So, I mean, he's not wrong. He's leaving out a little bit of detail. I don't know how much that matters.
But because the Earth is moving a little, it's now December 21st. December 25th was the shortest day of the year. And a lot of the really smart heathen would build this big temple so that the light shined right through this circle and right through this circle and struck this gold plate, you know, on that day. And they would tell their people, now, I'm God, and if you don't bring me presents, I'm going to make the sun keep going down, down, down until it disappears. But if you bring me all your gold, I'll make the sun come back. They would have all these elaborate ceremonies to have the rebirth of the sun god, and that would happen on December 25th, which is a pure pagan holiday.
What does that mean? It's a pure pagan holiday. What does that mean, Ken? Does that mean, like, Christmas is bullshit? Is that what you're trying to get to? Because here's the thing, right? The date of Christmas, you know, the day it is, was based on a few things. One was the assignment of the Feast of the Annunciation to March 25th. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons it was that, but a big part of it was that March 25th was also a traditional date assigned to the date of the crucifixion of Jesus, based on the association between the equinox and the Passover, right? So that was then taken with the belief that prophets died and were born or conceived on the same day, which was a common belief in Second Temple Judaism that Christians inherited. So they applied that to the conception of Jesus. And Bent, what date is 9 months after March 25th?
December 25th.
Yes. That is how the date of Christmas was arrived at. So, like, there's no, like, oh, the pagans were having a holiday. Like, no. It just comes from speculation about the date of Jesus' crucifixion, which was then applied to his conception based on a belief from Second Temple Judaism that Christianity inherited, which was then carried forward 9 months. That's the whole story. Pillowplunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, a celebratory super chat as I was just doing some aquarium maintenance and found a couple of fish I thought had died were just hiding. Oh, awesome! Well, congratulations. That's a lot better than them just being gone. So I'm glad to hear that.
And here all the Christians today celebrate Christmas. I don't think most Christians know that, and I'm not against celebrating Christmas, but I think you do need to understand it has 100% pagan roots.
Just take a drink for Kent being completely ignorant of even the origin of Christian holidays. Like, and this isn't something we have to wonder about. Ancient Christians wrote this down, right? Like, they wrote about it. This isn't some kind of mystery of history.
It's December 25th is a pagan holiday.
It is also a pagan holiday. Different holidays can fall on the same day. Did you know Hanukkah is starting next sunset? I did. It's going to be during Christmas. Do you think the Jews stole Christmas, Kent? No.
He might actually think that.
Yeah, he might actually think that. But no, they didn't. They're just separate holidays that sometimes coincide to some degree or another. There's a finite number of days, Kent. With given enough religious traditions, some of the holidays are going to overlap. For just coincidence. And here's the other thing, right? This was an anti-Christian conspiracy theory made up by atheists to discredit Christianity. There's no good reason for Kent to accept it. Except that it's more easily attributable to anti-Catholicism than it is to anti-Protestantism. And so because Kent thinks it can be a dig on the Catholic Church, he's okay with it. That's it. I hate it so much.
The Inca Indians and the Aztecs would have all these sacrifices, where they would cut people's hearts out and offer them to the gods. Oh, please bring the sun god back. You travel all over.
Those were primarily about fertility in harvests, not just about the cycle of the year. I'm not going to say the cycle of the year has nothing to do with that fertility, and there wasn't any connection, but primarily the Mayan human sacrifice was about two things. One, the excuse given was that it was about fertility for the land and offering blood to the gods so that they would bless the land with fertility and abundant crops. But primarily, it was a tactic of terror to keep their empire in line, because remember, their empire consisted of a whole bunch of conquered people who were brutally oppressed in an effort to keep them from rebelling. And one of the ways that they kept them terrorized and not rebelling was by collecting captives and executing them in a human sacrifice in a horrific manner. You don't want to mess with the guys who cut people's hearts out. Better just fall in line. So that's a much more important part of it. Was just the brutal oppression of conquered people.
Mexico, you see these suns every place. The plates are made like suns. The clocks have like suns, If you look at a lot of the Catholic statues, you'll see Mary holding baby Jesus, and there's a sun coming up, the rebirth of the sun god.
Oh, I'm going to take a drink. Jeez. Kent, what you're primarily seeing is a halo. The halo represents the light of God that is produced by the indwelling of the Holy Spirit among the faithful in Christian theology. It is not a reference to a sun god. In different cultures, the halo takes on slightly different shapes and slightly different details. But it is primarily the light of God, not the sun. And I know that there's, visual similarities, but that is the basic idea. Is that it is the light of God, not a sun god. Because you know what Catholics don't believe in? Sun gods. Because Catholics are Trinitarian Christians who believe in the Trinity, like God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Like Kent does. I'm just going to hit play.
Average Catholic doesn't have a clue what they're in, but when they find out most of their symbols are satanic.
No, Kent. Oh, take a drink of the fucking satanics. Oh my god. Kent, the Catholic Church is not hiding its belief. You can go get a free catechism, which is a question and answer version of basically a systematic theology for the Catholics. I'm not saying you have to believe all of it, but it's right there. The Catholic Church is not an esoteric religion with secret teachings if you get high enough. They're pretty open about what they believe. And sun gods and Satan worship aren't freaking in there. Right? Look, I have problems with the Catholic Church. I do. But that's not one of them. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine, for $2 says, no, Kent. That's the S-O-N God. Yes, basically. Kent's weird anti-Catholic conspiracy theories, which are mirrored, by the way, by Chick Tracts, are just bizarre and not based in any kind of reality, which I guess should be expected for Kent. Roshan of Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says, I wonder how Kent feels about Catholics. It's a mystery. Yeah. All right, we're going to get a little bit more Kent in, then we're going to wrap up.
And pagan, they say, wow, I didn't know that, And the honest,
that's because it's not true.
Intelligent ones will say, wow, I better investigate this. Others will just get mad at me for even saying so,
Yeah, they're getting mad at you, Kent, because you're lying. You know what? He's probably going to move on to a new topic. I can tell because of his mannerisms. Do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
No, I have nothing coming up.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to double check in on the fundraiser. Oh my goodness. It's at 535. That is 36% of the way there. And again, half the proceeds from this stream are going to Bent for this. Well, they're going to the fundraiser specifically, which, goes to Bent. So that's not so crazy. So first, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has been generous and has donated. It really does mean a lot. But let's take a look at what's coming up on this channel. First of all, we are not doing Power Rangers tonight. Sorry. But what is coming up here? So on Thursday at noon, my time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Casey Luskin. Oh, sorry. Jeffrey Tompkins is Salty is coming up. Casey Luskin, alleged cannibal pervert is the next week. Then on Saturday, we're going to be doing another Dapper Reacts. That should be with Kip and Vishanti again. And on Friday at 6 p.m. my time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, look out for something to do with Star Trek Adventures. I don't know what. Borg Pori, who's been a member for 18 months, says, rumor has it that Santa is bringing Dapper a magical pelagic tunicate that can only recite Kent Hovind's dissertation. Oh my goodness, I would hate that so much. Then on Tuesday, we're going to do another we're going to do another Kent with Bent, so look forward to that. Other than that, I think we're out of here, so have a wonderful Christmas, everyone who's celebrating Christmas. If you're not celebrating Christmas, that's great. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovend, Ferravara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Aileron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Wallace, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.